Hello, and welcome to the Saladcast on Sunday, the 20th of October, 2024. I'm your host, Dan Train. Join me today, Zachary Burgess.
This week I lived.
And Robert Kemp.
And I'm still self-inflicting.
Yeah, Rob did the exact same thing this week as he did last week.
Yep.
And I luckily didn't.
I ran.
So I'm fine.
I ran like a fool. I did not listen to my own advice.
But who's truly alive?
What in a simulation.
The one that pushed themselves to run when they didn't even want to?
Yeah.
Or the one who managed to recover from illness?
What if I am like unbeknownst to me, a masochist? You know, the sort that, because I've talked before, I'm not sure I enjoy running, but I do keep doing it. Like, what is wrong with me? Oh, I know, pizza.
That's how you pay for pizza, basically.
Oh, I know.
You have to keep doing the
running
run.
really offset the pizza?
I mean,
Probably.
I mean, it must do. Like, there must be like quite a lot of calories burnt doing 9 miles in the middle of the field.
And especially if you happen to be doing it on the same day.
As pizza, yeah. A true offset. Immediate offset.
I'm sure you ate pizza before you went running, Rob.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Yeah, I did, but somehow I was getting older and fatter.
Does it actually help with that? Like,
well, no, I still think I've gained weight since in the last 10 years I've been running.
So it doesn't quite offset the.
Well, it's probably slowed. Like that's what I keep telling myself. It's probably slowed the onslaught of cheese. But I don't know what. I guess it was my mid-20s, like where I seem to get away with it for quite a while, and then the 30s kicked in, and then it's like, nah, dog, you can't,
nah, dog.
So you can't pull this off anymore.
The mysterious metabolism factor.
I mean, I used to eat.
Or is it just age? I don't know what it is.
It's got to be age. It's got to be middle-age spread, right? I guess I didn't. I was about to say, I guess I didn't drink as much beer back then. It's like, no, I did. I definitely did. I probably drank more. But I drank more beer of lower quality. So
you think the quality matters to the metabolism?
Yeah. I swapped from lagers to ales, right? Maybe that's what did it. Actually, no, I only have like one a week these days.
That'd be worse.
It can't be that
right?
bad.
Surely ale has more calorific content than lager.
Oh, yeah. I think so. I think that's true. Well, I suppose it depends on the lager, but generally, yes, I would assume that.
I wonder, was I more anxious and was like losing weight just fidgeting in a chair?
Yeah, so I reckon
now I'm like chilled out.
Well, to an extent, I think that is part of me, right? Because I don't jiggle my legs nearly as much as I used to. Partly because everyone friggin' hates it when they're sat next to me, and I'm sitting there jiggling, and it's like, so I don't passively do that anymore. So I like the tiny amount of burning that's going on when I'm just
going for the jiggling.
Yeah,
but that's because the jiggling has been replaced by running. Surely, like you're exhausting that energy in a different way.
Because that did happen to me this week. So I couldn't get to club. I couldn't get to club training early in the week, and then by like later on in the week, like my legs are going, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? What are you doing right now? Are you trying to play video games? It's a podcast about video games. Are you trying to play video games right now? Yeah, you ain't something doing that, son. I need to go.
I love how your legs are referring to you as son.
They are the boss of me.
Apparently they are now.
Yeah.
Is it both of them or just one?
Oh yeah, it's always both. It's like, I guess I've always had a sort of anxious reaction in that it kind of feels the same, in fairness, like in my calves. Like if I'm like, I remember like at exam time in school or something, which I think is where the jiggle comes from with me. It's like if I'm either super excited about something or anxious or slightly nervous about something, my calf muscles just generally suddenly feel super active. And they need to be doing something. I need to tire them out.
See, this seems to be a good explanation for the running for you in particular.
Well, I mean, it didn't just sort of passively happen with no anxious trigger or no excitement trigger before.
Yeah,
now it does. Now it's just a passive part of my life if I don't exercise, which is frustrating. It's like that only started happening when I started running.
Yeah, because you've developed those muscles and now they need to be used.
Yeah, the muscles are like, come on, dog, I'm here. You gotta use me, brother. I mean, my legs in general call I'm a dad.
They're coming up with all kinds of weird.
But my muscle groups are just bros.
Weird relationships.
I mean, bro, I suppose is more gym person standard, right? Gym bro.
I guess so. Gym bros.
Bro. Do you even lift, bro?
Gym rats.
Was it bra?
They're called, aren't they?
Only if you're in California.
Are they gym rats? I haven't heard that one.
I think gym rat is a thing. Someone who spends too much time in the gym.
Apologies to a Mr. Gym Rat if you're listening.
Mr. Gym Rat.
Yeah, so
I've got a client that I'm working with at the moment who's corporate, City of London finance stuff, London boring, literally like full of train guys, Bob Mortimer style train guys.
Yeah, have a camper choo-choo on me.
Have a camper choo-choo on me type. But there's one guy
who'll always be a fidgety weasel.
A fidgety weasel, exactly. But there's one guy who's like a project director or something, and he's literally like an MMA fighter.
Oh wow! Okay.
He's like, he's quite intimidating. He's really nice, but he makes people do things. Or he
in an arm lock
gets people to do things, which is quite good.
Does he startle them in darkened car parks?
No, there's no car park because it's London.
Oh yeah, of course.
But yeah, my
mistake.
But you might not want to come across them especially if you're behind on a deadline. Or something. He carries like a giant bag everywhere he goes. It's like a bug out bag. He's got everything at all times, so he can go anywhere, anytime. He doesn't have to pack because he just lugs it everywhere.
My old tech lead was pretty beef as well. Nicest guy in the world, but yeah, dude clearly worked out.
Yeah.
Is this the new trend? Like,
I mean, you're doing all the running, but yeah, I mean, it is a trend in California, right? I mean, you never tempted into the actual gym.
No,
where would you even go?
That's even worse. Like, at least with the running, you're
even worse.
At least with the running, you're kind of like on your own or with a group of other masochists. Like in a gym, yes, you're surrounded by other masochists who are all superior than you. Okay, that's no different from me in running, but but B, I don't know. You're kind of trying to do your own thing while everyone else is watching or potentially getting their phone out to do TikToks. It's even worse now than it once was.
Right, and presumably everyone has just decided not to care, and you just have to learn not to care. Which presumably, I think so. I don't know how long that takes.
I mean, I assume that's what it is, but it's also, I don't know. I feel like gym work, you have to be way more self-motivated to go. I'm going to go lift this thing. Now I'm going to do some sit-ups. Now I'm going to do this thing, and it's like, I suppose I'd have to have a PT driving me. I guess would be the only way that would work.
I think presumably you start with a PT or whatever, and then you can just get a fucking app to tell you.
Maybe, yeah, but I'm just not. Yeah. That wouldn't work on me. Nothing gets me to exercise more than peer pressure,
right?
And pizza,
yeah. There's no way you would have done that second lap today if there wasn't.
Oh no, I wouldn't. I would have absolutely just.
Would you have done the first lap? No, maybe not.
Well, yeah, the timing worked out to do the first lap this time, so that was my choice to go do it rather than park run this week. But just because stuff was happening, and the second lap was not even on my radar, not even close. Given how crap my stamina has been the last several years at this point. And I just proved that it's still kind of crap. Still, 9 miles is a long way for me. That's way further than I usually go. So it's understandably, the crapness is understandable. I am the crapspert.
Yes. You are the crapspert. I mean, the outdoors thing definitely appeals to me. That's like a 2-in-1. Like you get the exercise and the getting away from a screen and outside thing. Whereas gym, you don't get that part. You're like in a room, a sweaty room.
Also, Ring Fit's impossible at home with Miles around.
Obviously.
He just wants the ring.
You're doing any physical movement.
I mean, it's a bit dangerous, I suppose, if he just steps in the wrong place and you roundhouse him or something.
Well, sure, yeah. And he's naturally going to be attracted to it regardless.
Yeah.
If you're doing something, he's going to want to investigate it.
Well, it'd be fun if he just stood beside me and tried to mimic me. That would be kind of cute.
But you'd have to teach him to do that.
Yeah.
You need to buy him
I need to buy him a ring.
Tiny ring that's similar scale, but
that doesn't work with Marzi. Marzi wants
the real thing.
Well, he wants anything you have, so it wouldn't matter. Well, he knows he had. There's a sacrificial Xbox controller I have, right? And I give it to him, but he knows if I'm not using that controller, and he wants that one instead. And it's here, you've got one. It's the same as the one I've got. It's no, I want your one because the Xbox lights up. The Xbox logo lights up. It's I want that one.
Lights up.
And the one I use on my Steam Deck is obviously a PlayStation controller, so it's clearly different. I want that one. So same with his food, in fairness. You give him some lovely food. Could be the exact same thing that you're eating, and he wants the one off your plate.
He wants your one, yeah.
Yeah. What you got there? What you got there? It's the same damn potato.
The literal same potato.
It's probably, if it was mashed potato, I suppose it might be, right?
Yeah, it might be, yeah.
It's the exact same potato. You've got some right there. Yours? Would you like some potato? He does actually nod now. But if you ask him, would you like anything, he just nods now.
He always nods, yeah.
You seem to have unfortunately trained that slightly too.
Yeah, I don't think he understands.
Precisely.
I don't think he understands that it means yes.
No,
he just knows that that's the action for want.
Well, I don't think he even knows that. I mean, he knows
response to question, or response to something related to when he wants something. I think it's super vague. I think. If you say something around him when he's in the middle of "I want that," he'll just nod.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you like to play a game?
Nod. Would you like to not do that, Marzi? Nod.
That would be the trick. Start training you on that one.
Yeah.
The double negatives.
What else is picking up? How y'all doing? What else have you been? Is this movie in TV time? Or out of...
I mean, Rob, Zach's recovered, right? Is that right?
Yeah. I did.
Anything more noteworthy?
I did attempt to do after I saw that BBC article that I talked about last time, where it's here's the sleeping positions that might help you back. I attempted to do that one with the pillow between your legs.
Oh, yeah.
Between the knees.
Because I was just like, what is this even meant to do? And then I did it. I was like, oh, I think I understand what it's meant to do, whether it actually has a significant effect or not.
Straight hips, right?
Well, yeah, it's because when you're lying on your side, having the pillow means you can stack your legs precisely on top of each other, rather than having them naturally slot off.
I did say you can get specially shaped pillows for the purpose that are hourglass shaped.
Yeah, but
do they have anime ladies on them?
Probably.
How would that work?
I don't know. Well, I mean, hourglass figure, I suppose.
Yeah. But no head.
No
legs.
That wouldn't stop them.
Yeah,
I guess. I mean, yeah.
I mean, the big problem that I have with it at the moment is that, the pillow I'm using for it is probably just too huge. It's getting it in there under the covers is kind of awkward. And it keeps escaping also.
Oh.
It's I'll wake up and it's just it's on the floor. It's how'd that happen?
At least it helped you get to sleep, I suppose.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how much effect. The trouble was that it's I started doing that at the point where I was already getting better. And it's just is this having any effect? Who knows?
Don't know.
Never going to be able to tell. But I'll keep doing it for now anyway.
Well, let's see if it's preventative, I suppose.
I definitely need a better pillow for it. And the one disadvantage I've discovered with it is that, because of the way you're stacking your legs on top of each other like that, you can't exploit a hot water bottle as well because you can't get both your feet on it.
Mate, but it hasn't been hot water bottle weather this last...
It definitely has.
No, it hasn't.
In my room.
Not these last couple of weeks. It's been hot again.
Well,
I've been toasty.
Not both these weeks. Last week was a bit colder.
Oh, I suppose you're right. Yeah, last week there was a chilly day.
Yeah.
This week's been toasty. I actually turned the fan on.
I still haven't had to turn the radiator on in my room, but that only works during the day when my computer's on.
Yeah,
Like during the night when it gets cold, all the heat goes out.
Heating did go on here finally. Turned it on. Burn that oil.
Literally, in your case.
Yeah.
Do you have to have like a oiler truck come and replenish your oil?
A big old truck turns up with a hose. They jam it into a thing somewhere. I don't know. I assume
somewhere. You don't know where the oil tank is.
I know where the oil tank is, but I actually don't know what they connect to fill it up, or if they just open the top and just shove a pipe in it. I don't know. Probably that. And then they give you the exact number of liters you have specified in your order, and then they put a note through the door and bugger off. They don't even say hello. Just come and do it.
Oh, really?
Yep.
How often is that?
Well, when we ask them to. So at the moment, it's pretty infrequent. Actually, we've done pretty well in not having to burn too much oil for the last year. So it's but yeah, you normally have to get like a big old 500 liter order in, and that's like, well, I forget, but it's multiple hundreds of pounds to get it topped up. But that's how you pay. That's how we pay our heating bill. It's just in pure oil.
Purely in oil. Okay. Is that just the way it's done around your way?
Yeah, because there's no gas.
Gas.
Yeah, there's no gas lines in this neck of the woods.
Can you get the heat pumps or whatever people are raving about?
You can, yeah. They are hella pricey though. Yeah, they are electric. But yeah, they're effective and they're pretty good. I've got no beef with heat pumps, but other than they're pretty ugly. You know, you've got to put them
right.
What looks like an air conditioner.
It kind of is.
Yeah. Right? Outside your house, unless you can do one of those depth heat pumps or like ones that can actually go underground and use ground
I don't think
warmth,
the box goes underground though. That's just like where the pipes go.
Yeah.
You still have the box part and have the pumps and whatnot.
Yeah, the deep ones you have to have like a shed dedicated to it, right? The actual area needed to put that in is quite large. Whereas
ideally you just want your whole garden to be dug up and put the pipes in, and then the larger area you have to
the whole goddamn box gets covered in snow or whatever. Is it still work fine? I guess so.
Well, maybe not if it can't get airflow going.
Well, that's a different problem, I suppose.
Yeah.
But the temperature differential is the only thing that matters, and that's you can still pull a lot of heat even when it's cold. Surprisingly enough.
Yeah, so I wouldn't mind having those, but they are pricey to put in.
Well, ideally, that's going to be something that will get subsidised soon.
Yeah, you'd think, you'd hope they'd come down because they are just effective. It's like
that seems to be the way it's going, right?
Well,
I guess it'd be a big project to do the whole country.
Cuts down on the fossil fuels that you're burning, at least.
Yep.
At
least you're not burning coal anymore. Why is it all oil and coal over there in Nedermarket?
Yeah, Nedermarket. This is the we are the home of black fuels.
Yeah. But that was a choice in my house.
That the last coal power plant in Britain shut down.
Yeah,
it's all gone now. Drax is all burn something else.
Drax the Destroyer.
Biofuel. Sorry,
Drax the Destroyer.
I know, it's a cool name, isn't it, for a power plant? Drax. Yeah, it's well badass. I think literally I looked it up and like Drax was just the name of the village. I don't know why it was called Drax. I guess it was historically. But cool. With an X. It's awesome. Anyway.
Do you reckon that's Viking or Saxon or something like that?
Yeah, maybe. But
if it was Saxon, it would be like Draxton or something. It would have a turn on the end.
I think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Or a ham. Probably a ham. Draxon. It's just a town of Wrexham. See, it's right there. It's so close. Except not physically close. Anyway, podcast about video games. Don't worry, I haven't watched any Star Wars or...
Your expertise is lagging behind.
Of note. I am watching Agatha all along from...
oh, right. I'm kind of curious about that because it's genuinely like... Just literally for love of Catherine Hahn, I think she's brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty light-hearted. It's not... I wouldn't say it you have to have it helps to have some knowledge of WandaVision in particular.
I did see that one because that was like the first one. So it's like, and also, WandaVision was like, I liked the cool creative idea of it, like initially. Like, for me, I preferred the early episodes to the.
The hook is neat, but
it was well cool.
Because this obviously follows on from that, and then the witches in Marvel are kind of weird and interesting. So it's they're not as witchy as you might expect,
like
I suppose.
Potter or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, broomsticks and stuff exist, but like they're like frowned upon. It's like, oh, this is so. They're like,
it's so passe.
Yeah. Why do we're trying to shake that image, guys?
How does that compare to like what else has got witches? Fucking Buffy the Vampires. Like, I don't know.
I suppose the Witcher, does he count as a witch?
Does that have it? I don't know.
Really, he's like anti-witch, right?
Yeah, you think so.
He's the one that kills the witches.
A de-witcher.
The Witcher.
You ready for your close-up, Mr. DeWitcher? It's fine. It's fine. There's been some talk about people going, "Oh wow, the twist is great," and I'm like, I thought the twist was mighty confusing.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
that's not a good sign because that was obviously the whole point of this show is following on from the twist, presumably.
Sure.
In WandaVision, right?
I mean, there was.
In fact, the name of the show is named after the twist in WandaVision.
It was kind of like I mean, it was very confusingly like sort of slapped on at the end of one episode, and you're just like, wait, what just happened? What's going on? Why is all right? And then it takes an entire next episode to sort of explain what's going on. I'd kind of called it, but no, it was just the way that it happened, like in that episode. I'd kind of thought it's like, oh, that's probably where this is going early on. But when they actually came to reveal it, I was, that moment where suddenly it all changes, you're just like, sorry, what? And then, I don't know if it's a good. I mean, it's kind of neat that it's like, oh yeah, now we can go back and show you everything from a different perspective, and you can. Sometimes that's cool. I'm not 100% sure it's the best thing ever here, as maybe the internet seems to think it is. But it's fine. It's fine. It's pretty light. Light marveling.
Some light marveling.
Marveling.
It's just that we don't know where Marvel is like going.
No. I really still don't have that sense at the moment. It feels like they've slowed down.
Oh yeah, they definitely have.
Which is probably okay. I don't really have a problem with that.
I mean, the things they have done, like Deadpool versus Wolverine, have been successful. So it's not totally tanking.
I saw there was another Star Wars show. Like, what is Skeleton? I haven't watched it.
Kids.
But, right, yeah.
Which could be cool, but I think it's like a Goonies style kids adventure, but with
like kids from the our world go into Star Wars world.
No, they'd never do that. I hope.
I mean, that's sort of what the blurb made it sound like, and I'm like, what?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. Well,
but it's for kids. Anyway,
yeah. Well, I wasn't gonna. Yeah, still waiting for that Andor. So
it's got Jude Law in it. I think I guess like a Obi-Wan kind of old wizard kind of figure.
A one like.
But yeah, Andor season 2. That's where it's at.
Come on.
I still think Andor was, while being really good, was also quite a strange tone for Star Wars.
Oh sure, yeah, it's definitely.
It didn't actually feel that Star Warsy in a way, but that doesn't mean it's not good because it was good.
No, I think they managed to pull it off, right? I think Star Wars does have. I mean, the very nature of its world feels like it can pull off slightly darker tales.
Yeah, and that's what they did, I guess.
As long as they're done tastefully, I suppose. Which is, I guess, you might argue that Acolyte was trying to also be a bit darker, but I don't think it really nailed that particularly well.
It's weird because it's like it's for, well, I guess us, but I mean, there's whole generations of kids who've grown up since the 70s loving Star Wars or whatever, but it's for like people who love Star Wars as a kid who want something adult or whatever.
Sure.
And that's what Andor is. And it's like, yeah, that's cool. And you guys, we all love it, I guess, but it's not really in the spirit of the. You wouldn't have loved it when you were a kid when you loved Star Wars.
No.
Yeah.
It's goofy space fantasy. That's what Star Wars.
Some of that
core
like,
tone is,
stuff
but,
was pretty dark in Andor.
Oh yeah.
That Andy Serkis was great.
Do you reckon he'll come back? We don't actually really know what happened to him.
I doubt it. Could do though. They always leave those things open, don't they?
Yeah. They didn't outright show it.
Yeah. I'm surprised they haven't brought back what's her name? Khaleesi. She was in
right. She was in Rogue One, right? But they might
no, she was in Solo, right?
I'm getting confused with the other one. Who plays the lead in Rogue One? Pretty similar to Emilia Clarke, right? But not.
Yeah,
but not her.
One. Yeah, but her character dies, right? In the I see because
Andor is leading up to that, right? She might turn up in season 2. But probably not, right? Because she injured. Yeah. So probably not actually.
Jyn Erso, right? Such memorable characters.
Drink gin.
Qui-Gon Jinn Erso was the theme here. Let's head to the cantina.
Booze.
What did Jawas order at the cantina? Martini. There you go. That's my Star Wars joke for the day.
I hereby hand over my title of crapspert.
Because it's my expertise in Star Wars puns. What do you call a three-legged donkey?
Wonky
donkey.
Yeah, that's not a Star Wars joke.
What do you call a three-legged donkey who can use the Force? Obi-Wonky donkey.
I hate that more.
Right, let's move on to the next section, which is video game news.
Video game news. Sorry, I should say that in the correct tone. News.
It's required.
I thought we were going into a new season there, or a new whole
video game news.
Video game news.
Yeah, this appeals to the VTubers. I don't know. Is that the voice they would use? I don't know.
No, it'd all be Skibbity Toilet, I think.
That's not a VTuber thing. Well, sort of.
Well, maybe you could get that.
Probably this by now.
Maybe you could.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Someone must be like VTubing with that Half-Life 2 model, right?
That must be pretty easy compared to the sophisticated VTube models they have.
Well,
I mean, there's considerably fewer jiggle physics required.
Yeah, but that's the point, though, isn't it? It's like it's not about how easy it is. It's about actually doing it so it looks good.
Well, yeah. So
like anyone can shit out a 2-frame JPEG and VTube with that, but that's not going to be good.
I don't know if I could. Yeah, the concept of VTubing is kind of interesting, but then you see clips of it because it just turns up everywhere, right? And then you're just like, how could you actually watch that for any considerable length of time? Because it doesn't really vary.
Well, it's the same as watching any streamer.
I know, but
arguably watching an actual human stream is just as boring.
I would argue people are a bit more reactive than watching overlapping hair animation.
Well, it depends.
Over floaty Zenless Zone Zero style.
It depends how it's done, I guess. Some of them are much worse than others. It's mainly the ones that have a whole bunch of extra limbs and shit sticking out, where it's just this whole screen is just jiggling constantly because every time you move your shoulders slightly, 5 other things that are attached to it move.
Yeah, a sensory overload. Try reading the chat over that.
Who reads chat in the stream? You just spam shit and then nobody reads it. That's how chat's
Are
meant
they
to work.
reacting to the chat though? Or?
Well, they are. You're not.
Right,
Yes.
you're not. Yeah.
Chat doesn't react to chat. Chat just shouts shit and hopes that the streamer sees it.
Kappa, 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 show us your boobs. No. Isn't that what Twitch is about?
Pretty much.
Oh, God.
Isn't it all like people thanking people for clicking the?
That's pretty much all it is,
money
isn't
button.
it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on
like
how the
different
stream is going, I
celebrations
guess.
popping off.
Yeah. Someone needs to take all of the hash bombs that were in. Oh God, what's that game called? iDub.
Yeah.
And just put those onto it so you can like lang zone everyone. Just iDub. Here comes some news. Red Dead Redemption on PC, finally an official thing.
Wow.
After
how many years?
Yeah, well, not only after years of the original of it not being on PC ever, but also years of speculation and half leaks and rumors and stuff like that. It's actually real now because it's listed on Epic Game Store and everything. It's probably on Steam too, I reckon.
And how much will it cost? I hope $5.
Oh, I bet not.
No.
I bet it's going to be like
clearly not.
It's going to be like £30-40 minimum.
Ridiculous. I mean, it's a great game, but
I don't even think it's like had any real remaster work done to it particularly. Just maybe some UI tweaks for
they did a
higher
little bit
res,
for
but
PS4, 5, I think, but not much. Not remaster, but just
no,
like
there's probably
sure.
some like, as I say, some UI upscaling or redoing to make it look nice at higher resolutions. But yeah, other than that, pretty much that game, which not terrible. It kind of holds up.
Yeah, it's a great game, and it's not as like heavy as Red Dead 2.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Definitely not. Yeah, thematically, not as
yeah.
Oh, Arthur. Yes, I guess that's news, right? It's like it's an event. So they finally managed to de-spaghetti their horrible code base that supposedly stopped them from doing this before.
Meanwhile, GTA 6 is like delayed, I guess, is it? Or like it's next year now, isn't it? I think.
Oh, I mean, it was always next year. I thought. I
Yeah.
don't think it was. Is it next year though? Is it like pushed out of 25?
I don't know. I just heard it's it's not going all that smoothly. They've been working on that for forever. So.
Yeah, it's out in Red Dead Redemption is the PC version is out in a week ish, just over a week, for a cool £40.
£40
for what is a more than a decade old game at this point.
How much should it be? I mean, how much can you get GTA 5 for?
Oh, like peanuts. Like if you catch it on deal, it's like a couple of quid these days. Like
really?
Yeah, I think GTA 5 occasionally does go on heavy discount.
I mean, surely, that's worth equal to or more than Red Dead Redemption, right?
I mean, GTA 5 is so old, you could probably just find a PC code from like a physical copy or something. I don't know.
But GTA 5 is then trying to get you into the economy because it has the online. Like that's why they can sell that super cheap.
Yeah,
that's true. They can loss lead it, I guess. They might as well make it a free to play game that you just get the whole single player for free at this point.
Well, like GTA 1 and 2 it just. So
anyway, I like Red Dead Redemption. It's good.
The lowest recorded Steam price in the UK for GTA 5 was £10.
Right. Yeah. Seems like 20 quid would be a fair price for Red Dead Redemption, not 40.
Yeah, it's a bit steep, but it's Rockstar, and I assume they haven't, like GTA Definitive Edition Collection sorted this up. They haven't added like incredibly static, weird-looking rain. I assume.
Oh no, it's not nothing like that.
Yeah,
no.
So there's that. Halo Studios is a thing now. Death to 343 Industries. All hail Halo Studios.
So this is a reboot, but to what? I mean,
it's just a rebrand of the studio. It's the same studio.
Yeah, it's the same studio, right? So what people are different, or what's even changing?
I mean, well, there is one like bit of news that was like tied to this, right? And that's that the whole point in them announcing this was, I think it was at some sort of esports competition or something. It was for the hardcore, right? Like people are already like into their Halo. which is a slightly weird place to announce this, I guess. But they were basically saying, we're going to ditch Slip Space Engine.
Yeah.
Because, hey, look at that Unreal. Like, just look at that thing.
Literally the entire industry now.
Yeah, moving to Unreal. Well, and they did kind of specify, it's like, well, look, we could continue to work on Slip Space, which I believe was one of those sort of engines that was still essentially under the hood, still running ancient code from like previous Halo games and things like that. It wasn't in an entirely new ground up thing.
They never are. Yeah.
No, I mean, what things is everything's based on Quake, and then and just kind of said like, well, it will just cost us too much money to keep up with what Unreal are doing. So let's just use that. And it's not like the rest of Microsoft or other teams in Microsoft aren't already used to using Unreal.
It's true, and it'd be easy for them to recruit.
It was. Don't get me wrong; it's ambitious, and the industry does need variety in engines.
Yeah,
but having an engine that is purely designed for Halo seems like a bad call, right? I mean, you could argue like that happened with DICE and Frostbite, right? They made an engine specifically for Battlefield, but now Frostbite is what Ubisoft uses for everything.
Is it?
Yeah. Pretty much every Ubisoft game is Frostbite powered in some form.
I thought that was Anvil. I'm getting confused.
Oh, you might be right. Maybe they moved on. Yes,
I know. But Frostbite was forced by EA to be used to make like FIFA and shit.
Yes, it was used to make games it wasn't designed for.
Sorry, you're right. Sorry, Anvil is the Ubisoft engine. I'm getting it wrong. Yeah, it's the EA side of things. Pretty much everything EA is Frostbite powered.
And then there was like a couple of weird branches of Frostbite that tried to make it work for other like styles of game.
Yeah, and they really was it Mass Effect Andromeda.
Oh yeah,
famously struggled because it wasn't. Frostbite wasn't up to snuff for doing the kind of game that Mass Effect is. And
I don't think that game would have been good anyway.
Well, they might have had an easier time because if you were to talk about like raw time investment, if they were to stuck with Unreal, why can't I say that? Stuck with Unreal, like they did.
I mean, that would make even
games.
More sense because they used Unreal for Mass Effect previously, so
and they knew it worked for them. So why did they switch? Because, he said we should push Frostbite. Not that they license it out.
The argument they're making with Halo, right, is like we spent a lot of time building this engine that we could have spent on the game. We'll just use Unreal.
Yeah,
I think the problem is that like
you've ended up with fewer like Brute Steve or whatever his name was.
That's not an engine problem, probably.
No, that's probably an art problem.
I mean, I guess loading the textures is kind of an engine problem.
I don't think that was a texture load issue. I think it was just...
That might have been.
Just how he looked.
But I mean, the big problem they're going to have is, like, sure, it's saving you a lot of work on, like, making the assets, I guess, but you are going to have to port the whole, like, feel of Halo into Unreal.
Sure.
Otherwise, it will just feel like another fucking Unreal Engine game.
Yeah.
And everyone will hate it.
They probably can do that, right, though? I mean, presumably
you'd assume the movement and control logic is actually separate from the engine to a certain extent. Like,
well, sure, the rendering is a separate thing, I guess, but like the physics engine presumably is built in part of that engine.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to fiddle with that.
Yeah,
I know the Slip Space engine, maybe did use parts of old code and stuff like that, but I'm sure like it was still a relatively new thing, and by all accounts, everyone says that Infinite pretty much nailed the actual Halo movement combat stuff pretty well.
I mean, I have absolutely no beef with how that thing feels.
So I reckon they could get that into Unreal if they.
I reckon they'll be able to.
But the question is, what are they actually going to do? Because
this was not
what
announced.
They showed was some pretty nice looking like environment demos of like here if we use Unreal.
Yeah,
and there was a bunch of environments which were very kind of Halo 1 kind of style.
Sure, and there was a what I would call a slightly shonky Master Chief animation in there as well. So it was clearly test footage to be like this is what we can.
It was mainly like
look we're going
for. Master Chief and an elite like posed statically in a kind of action pose.
Kind of,
yeah, but with some nice like materials and stuff on all of the the gun and everything.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to get excited about an engine announcement, but also it's the right call in this industry as it is.
I mean,
right
those
now.
demos in Unreal, that obviously they look better than Infinite. Let's put it that way.
Unreal demos are the problem. It's just like we said with like when those Unreal Engine things came up with Sonic Frontiers and everyone was taking the piss out of it. It's like, it's an Unreal Engine demo game that some fan made. It's just like everything is just Unreal now.
The base Unreal look is pretty recognizable.
Yeah, they're going to have to try and get around that.
Kind of like how Unreal 3 was, right? Unreal 3 had such a recognizable look that
Mass
games
Effect,
games that were built in it, you could kind of just go, all right, this is one of those.
You know, to some extent, you could say that the Frostbite engine had a look to it as well.
Sure.
You could tell when a game was a Frostbite game. But like that's...
Yeah, until Battlefield 1 came along and the TAA kind of...
I don't know, I would have said that still felt quite a lot like
you think?
Frostbite engine.
I think, well, maybe it was just an iterative step. I thought that was like there was a transition there. I thought like Battlefield 1 was a notable leap up from what had come before in Frostbite. But then like FIFA's powered by Frostbite now, right? Like, it's not even FIFA, sorry, Football Club.
Yep. I mean, I guess if like, you know, I wouldn't have said, like, obviously it is, but I wouldn't have said that the older Gears of War felt like Unreal Engine games, apart from them being like the prime example of Unreal Engine games, but they didn't feel like every other Unreal Engine game, even back then.
Yeah.
Well, until the other third-person shooters started turning up, I suppose.
Well, sure.
Cover shooters.
I mean, Gears of War had very strong art direction, didn't it?
Yeah, and it does have a specific feel. Everything feels heavy.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
Great.
It didn't feel like it was just the generic.
Halo, right?
Yeah.
But it has a clear, strong art direction that
Sure.
you could.
Yeah. Something the Coalition I don't think have quite nailed is the weight of those original Gears games, right? Like everything felt. Maybe it's just the nature of it being smoother, right, on modern platforms. That is like there's some chunkiness lost in the last couple of Gears games that I would love back.
But that would be the same problem they're about to have with Halo, because if you don't get the feel of the physics right, everyone will be like, "Oh, it's just unreal."
Yeah.
If you can't launch a warthog with a bunch of grenades, then obviously you failed.
Sure. Yeah. Critical. I assume it's no longer Havoc based, but that was the driver behind those early Halo games.
I mean, as we've previously discussed several times, it's like someone needs to make a new physics engine. Anyone, just make one. Can we not just have everyone use Havoc? Because that's another one, like, that is noticeable when it's like, oh, yep, that's Havoc physics. You can tell once you've played enough games. Is Havoc
still a thing?
Yeah.
Has that kind of been superseded now by...
Well, unless it's
just the engine.
Yeah, sometimes it's the built-in ones, but when it's
I think Unreal has built-in stuff
it's
now.
Still Havoc.
Physics.
Whatever happened to PhysX?
It turned out we didn't need physics
what was the
cards
GTA
after all.
4 one and the Force Unleashed one?
Euphoria. Is that what you're
Euphoria, that's it. Yeah, that was great. People hanging onto cars, doors as you drove away, shit like that.
So that's Halo news. Also, their logo sucks. Just going to point that out.
I mean, I saw speculation, so yeah, the logo does suck. But like, what are they actually going to do though? Like, I know they have these tech demos or whatever, and it's like they'll have to build some games, and they said they had multiple projects in the works, I guess.
I just don't know what they do next. Like, because obviously the core audience is into the single player stuff.
Are they?
But then, yeah, actually, as those words came out of my mouth, I realized I'm just saying that because that's me, not because that's the core audience. The core audience, the multiplayer side of things, and I would argue, has that been a thing for? Has there been enough of a Halo multiplayer scene for them to be the bigger picture that they care? I mean, obviously they care about it because live service games and microtransactions and AAA and all that stuff. But also,
I just feel like there was a big gap in between. Like, everyone started with Halo 2 multiplayer, and then Halo 3 that still had it. But then I feel like you didn't hear virtually anything about 4 and 5, and now it's back with Infinite.
No, and Reach multiplayer was good as well.
Sure, but that's
technically
still Halo 3, I guess.
Yeah, and ODST had Firefight, which is
also Halo 3.
Yeah. Reach wasn't Halo 3. Reach was a step up from 3. Engine-wise.
But yeah, I don't feel like I heard anyone talking about 4 or 5 in multiplayer.
No, 4 was a weird one, right? Because 4 actually did change quite a lot about how the multiplayer worked.
Yeah.
And 5 kind of went back on it, but then they introduced these, frankly, what I thought were very cool Counter-Strike-y style game modes that didn't turn up in Infinite. I actually really liked what they did with Halo 5 multiplayer. I thought they did a good job there. Yeah, 4 was weird. 4 to me is the multiplayer adopted child. You know what I mean? It almost didn't feel like Halo. But 5 and Infinite, yeah, they feel like Halo. I got no beef with. I've actually got no beef with those games. Like I think they're fine. I just don't necessarily see Halo multiplayer as a force in today's world when you've got PUBG and maybe not PUBG these days, but when you've got Apex and Fortnite and these other behemoths of the space, like and COD. Obviously, COD was, you could consider, one of the killers of Halo, really.
But that's what I didn't understand with Infinite. Is like, why not just copy the trends? Why not just make Halo Destiny or make Halo Battle Royale or whatever?
I mean, apparently they were making a Halo Battle Royale. That's one of the tales I think that came out relatively recently, was that Halo Infinite was going to have a Battle Royale mode added to it. But like any trend-chasing move, would it have been too late? And I would argue probably yes.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, from what I read, it's like, internally they thought, yeah, the Battle Royale mode was pretty great. It was pretty good fun, but just not sure it was ever going to really be a thing.
It seems like they had the best chance of doing it when they already had basically a huge open world to just drop people onto and then have a ring close. And that is basically all you need.
Yeah, the map, other than a few parts, sort of top end of the map, like that kind of. I mean, it was a bit more linear.
Yeah, you'd have to not have a circle. You'd have to have it close in from the furthest point or something.
Yeah, the sort of problem with the Infinite map was it was a little bit island based, right? There were definite segments of the level where it would be hard to traverse between them, rather than it just being a landmass.
And it probably wasn't designed to load the whole thing at once or whatever for multiple players on the same server.
Right. Yes, because I believe Infinite's co-op had a tethering restraint.
Yeah.
Even when you're playing on 2 separate consoles, I think you couldn't drift from each other too far. I wonder if that's just a hosting device problem. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, I don't know what they do. I just want them to make single-player Halo games again and really focus on it this time, rather than worrying about a multiplayer. I know that's going to piss. Okay, let's argue 50% of the audience. It's probably going to piss 50% of the audience off to say that, but.
Well, the idea, I thought, having gone all this way with the story with 343 is what could they do? Is what they could do, which would be extremely lazy, is just fucking remake Halo.
Well,
which could happen, right?
I mean, yeah, they could.
But that's not
That's a challenge. I mean, okay, Halo 1, okay, maybe there's things you could do. You could perhaps, not do the repeating levels, the back and forwards, or perhaps mix them up a bit more, and you could probably do some hella work on the library, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, level-wise, it would be quite different, I think.
Yeah, but, I don't know. That feels like a challenge.
Yeah, well, they've got to do something.
But the whole problem, the whole problem with this rebrand is are they going to what are they actually going to do with the story? They can go and make Halo 1 again because they already have that story, made for them. But at some point they're going to have to make a new game.
Mm.
And everyone hated how it's been going.
Well, that's what I mean. Is like, there's that, but like, there's various forms of soft to hard reboot that they could do. But I mean, it seems like now's time for a reboot.
I don't know if just making Halo 1, and especially just making a sequel, if they were to follow the same trajectory and do a Halo 1 followed by a Halo 2, especially Halo 2, I don't know that Halo 2 would fly in today's.
They could do a Halo
market.
3 sequel. It would be a bit like that Superman film where they like ignore that there were already sequels to Superman 2.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, they could do it in a completely different direction. I think they'd have to do something quite different. Like reboot it, start from scratch, but tell a different story, tell a reinterpretation. Like,
yeah, but how much can you reinterpret that story when it's still got to be about Halos? In a game called Halo. I mean, I guess it could not be, but that would be weird.
I mean, the first game, yes, you do that. But the following games, you don't necessarily need to be, it's about more rings, or it's about the Ark, or
but then
you don't necessarily need Gravemind, potentially.
Well, you kind of do if you're going to have the flood again. You need
I suppose you need what the rings are stopping.
Yeah, you need
but you don't need Gravemind. You can have the flood, but you don't need.
But then it'd be real boring if there's no if it's just zombies. That's not actually very interesting.
Maybe that's easier to write around when you're if you're.
But then what are you going to write as the story if there's not some actual ancient aliens thing going on?
I mean, you can just lean into the Covenant. I definitely don't do the Prometheans. Don't go anywhere near that.
I think they know
Who
that.
made the rings?
Who cares? Honestly, just don't ever go. It's fine it being mysterious.
Well, sure. I don't think fighting zombies and fighting generic aliens is enough to hold a story over multiple games.
Do not ever say the word didact.
Well, no, definitely not that, obviously. I mean, I think the actual answer might be to make it so that you have the multiple Halos, but you have each one be a containment device for a different type of enemy. So you have the flood on the first Halo,
cool idea.
Yeah.
But then some other kind of weird alien threat on the second Halo.
Yeah, maybe you can find some lore somehow that's describes or maybe one of the monitors or something sort of tells you it's we were the Prometheans or whatever you want to call them,
the mystery aliens that we're not going to name,
precursors. When I went, not the Prometheans, right? There were some I've forgotten them. Was it Forerunners? Yes, thank you.
It all means the same thing.
Yeah,
what are they called in Mass Effect?
They are Prometheans in Mass Effect.
Prometheans, right? Yeah,
but the Prometheans are the weird robot race that the Didact has created in.
I mean, you could
Halo
borrow the Mass
5.
Effect storyline and be the rings are going to fire because they fire every so often. That's the Mass Effect story, isn't it? The Reapers come occasionally, and it's just like a timeline. It just always happens eventually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, maybe. It's hey, this threat, was about.
But then that threat doesn't. That time, if you put that into the Halo context, that time limited threat doesn't explicitly contain any antagonists, apart from you just have to get to the rings. There's
right, whereas the Reapers are actual sentient entities that are coming, right?
Yeah,
we're coming back.
Although you do most of your adventuring in Mass Effect 3 while they're literally on Earth destroying everything, and you're wandering around doing side quests.
Hi guys. I've just got something to do before I rescue this child.
Just that one child.
Just that one. Heartbreaking. That's Halo. What else is happening? Spider-Man 2. Last year's biggest first-party game out of Sony. That's coming to PC in January, which is a pretty quick turnaround for a PS5 to PC turnaround, really. I guess the question, I mean, that in itself isn't super surprising in the sense that that's what Sony have been doing, but it's the speed of it that sort of now is suggesting it's okay, what does that mean for Sony and PlayStation at this point? Are they Are they weakening PlayStation by doing this faster on PC? Or is this just a sign that Sony stuff on PC is actually, just doing well?
Are they just going to get rid of PlayStation at this point?
Yeah. Is this the last console generation? Yeah. It's like, well, no, apparently behind the scenes, rumours of PlayStation 6 are now circulating.
Doesn't necessarily mean it happen.
They make too much money on hardware.
I think they destroyed Xbox at this point. Yeah, so they're the only game in town.
I think they have done this generation. They have actually, because no one really lost lead this generation, right? Sure. That's so. I think they are making money on hardware now. I'm not entirely sure it would be sensible to exit at this point.
But
just the word PlayStation, right? That has so much weight.
Sure, but it can just be a studio name for games.
Well, I mean, does Sega carry that weight that they used to?
Did Sega ever carry that weight?
Sure, Genesis era. Sure.
Yeah, but that was way before the Dreamcast situation.
Well, the Dreamcast situation was kind of sullied by the Saturn situation.
Oh, sure. I mean, there was a couple of situations in a row.
Well, okay, but yeah, if you want to throw 32X into the mix as well. And Sega, and Sega CD.
But are they? Is PlayStation they're making money on the hardware? But as we keep saying, are they really making any games at the moment? And would they therefore just make, if they got rid of the hardware and just made more games, would that compensate for the money they'd make on the hardware?
I mean, I assume they're making games. It's just the cadence that studios put games out. Too slow these days. I still stand by what I've said many times before, and that games don't have to be as big as they are.
I mean, they do if they want you to play the hardware.
I mean,
that's kind of the thing.
No, but
that's why the hardware exists like it does.
Be beautiful and all that stuff, but just don't be as big. Cut your worlds in half. The game will be fine.
That's not what takes the development time, though. It's the beautiful part that takes the development time.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not so convinced by that sometimes. An awful lot of work's still got to go into crafting those environments and then the quests that use those environments and blah, 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 blah. I think you can, save some dough to some extent by just shrinking the project a bit. Then your games will come out faster. Maybe don't charge $70 for these slightly shrunken products, but it's fine. It's fine. Not everyone has hundreds of hours to sink into Forbidden West or whatever. Anyway, that's just me. I don't have hundreds of hours.
Obviously.
Pokemon leaks. I mean, the Pokemons don't actually. Well, I guess they must leak. Some of them
definitely leak quite a lot.
Some of them must leak. But yeah, there's been a
especially far-fetched.
There's been a bit of a data breach at Game Freak that has let some details slip.
Not especially actually interesting ones,
really. Not hugely.
It's just we're making that game we're making that movie we probably already knew that we were making.
I mean, it's some sort of multiplayer Pokemon thing in the works that apparently isn't an MMO. That's kind of new.
But it's also made by the bad subcontractor studio that made the shitty Diamond and Pearl remakes.
Right. That people don't like. So, maybe they'll be more in their element by doing a not remake.
Maybe.
Or a not traditional Pokemon game.
But it's not like the last Pokemon multiplayer game did great either. The Dota clone.
Oh, right, yeah. The actual MOBA. I kind of forgot that existed.
Yep, yeah. Exactly.
Some sort of multiplayer mystery dungeon? I don't know. I doubt it. Sports. There'll be some kind of Pokesport.
Well, they suggested it as something like Splatoon-esque, whatever that means.
Oh, yes, they did say that. Yeah, I just forgot I read that a second ago.
I don't know. Covering terrain with something?
Yeah. Is are you creating electric fields with Team Pikachu, or instead of squirting juice on it. And then I suppose Team Poison will just squirt juice on it.
Yeah, probably.
Team Water will just squirt water everywhere. Team Grass will foliate.
Yep, foliated.
Foliate.
Foliage. Yeah, so there's that. Obviously, we kind of knew there was another Detective Pikachu movie in the works. I don't know if we knew that it was going to be called The Great Detective Pikachu. Well, that's new to me. Now I know, at least. Detective Pikachu's got even better. Although, no, I'd like to know how they're going to explain, they spoilt the story of the games in that film, right? Because I don't think the games got to the point where it's like they made it clear that Detective Pikachu was, spoilers, the dad.
Right.
The missing dad.
And also the fact that they did get to that by the end of the film kind of like resolved that. It's like, what? He's not like Detective Pikachu anymore. He's just a Pikachu who wears a hat.
Yeah, he's just a Pikachu who wears a hat and the dad. Right, the two got separated, and it's So what are they going to do to merge them back? How are they going to explain that? For one thing, putting them back together. What's Mewtwo up to these days?
I mean, they could just do make it real dumb right at the start of this next movie, where it's just like the dad is like, "Oh, this life sucks. I want to go back," and then Mewtwo's like, "Well, okay,
fine."
Wouldn't the Pikachu put up a fight and be like, "What do you mean? You're taking it? You're stealing my life."
Kind of fine with it, even after the fact.
I'm not going to let you.
And also, it's an
me.
animal. Who cares? Technically.
I suppose they did kind of poop on the whole. That was the kind of the plot, wasn't it, of the Detective Pikachu, that the bad guy was after like true equality.
Yeah.
By making everyone Pokemon.
Yeah.
And then it's like, nah, fuck your dreams of equality.
Yeah. It didn't make much sense, of course.
I still enjoy that film. That film's weird, but it's enjoyable. I hope they do more
detecting.
Yeah, I hope there's a more viable detective story arc in this one, because it really kind of isn't much detecting going on in this. There's even that whole like subplot where Pikachu kind of figures out what's happened, and by the time he turns up to the scene, it's like, don't worry, it's not relevant now.
Yeah,
we know. It's so stupid. So there's that. Do we want to talk about Pokemon folklore and how friggin' weird it is? This supposed like, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what that bit of text that's floating around is or where it came from, but I mean, Zach, maybe you could tell me. I've already forgotten the Pokemon's name that seems to be the center of all of this.
Well, there was several pieces, but it all seems like it's more like it's weird internal document lore that is clearly written without like the sanitization of the Pokemon. It's just like if we just take Pokemon to the extreme where it's just like no holds barred or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
what would that world actually be like without the child filter on?
I mean, there's plenty of murder. There's dare I say it, some Poke rape going on.
Yeah,
like it's not a pleasant. It's pretty dark.
But then, like, why does that exist exactly? And then, like, what do they do with that? Is it like some guy just writes this and then we take one sentence and cut out all the bad stuff and put it in the Pokedex?
Was this like everyone go off, do your own, come up with some crazy ideas and or write some stuff, and we'll like have a horrible what's the word I'm looking for? Like,
I mean,
like focus group to try and munge this into something we can sell.
It just doesn't seem like that would be a useful thing to do in any way. To just be like, okay, everyone go off and write some weird dark Pokemon shit, and then we'll just ignore that because we can't actually use it.
Well, I mean, we don't know that was the goal, but like it's Creative Week. Do what you want.
I guess that could be, but like, that doesn't feel like a Pokemon Company thing. Being creative doesn't feel like a Pokemon Company thing.
Apart from like. Well, maybe the localizers coming up with Pokemon names.
They don't count.
That's probably isn't Game Freak anyway, right?
No.
That's probably Treehouse or someone doing it for them.
But yeah, I don't know. The weird Pokemon sex and all the other stuff. Pokemon sex and murder.
We haven't even really mentioned that, but that is like the confirmation that perhaps like Pokemon human relations
Yeah.
are kind of canon.
I mean, like if you look at the leaks and then actually go back through and look at all like the stuff that has been said in the Pokedex over the years, it's like you can like
Pokesex.
you can be like, hey, that obviously must mean it's like that points towards that, but that's like, you know, that's like some retcon stuff where you're looking for the links after the fact. And were they always there, or is this just you seeing a thing that like seems like it lines up?
Yeah, did they copy paste out certain bits of it? But actually, now you can read it with some context. Yeah. You're like, oh,
like, is this the actual folklore tale that this sanitized Pokedex entry is referencing, or is this just a huge coincidence?
But then some of Pokemon is just messed up, right?
Well, sure.
Like Cubone. Cubone's the classic, right? Why would you wear the skull of your mum?
I mean, that's not that weird.
It's kind of weird.
I mean, the real question is how did the child
Become
hang around? How did the child hang around long enough after the deceased mother to get the skull out?
Oh no, the child is clearly eating her mum, his mum,
maybe,
mum, and then licking that skull clean to wear as a crown.
But it seems sad about it, though.
I mean, it doesn't have to be happy. It's a dirty job. But what is the Cubone's mum? Like, is it another Cubone, or is it like without the skull being worn? Like, what?
In the game, it's a Marowak, obviously, the evolution. But that doesn't, you know, then you're talking about the Pokemon evolution versus eggs situation, where it's just like, what does it even mean? Are they even the same species when they evolve?
Yeah, do evolved Pokemon egg out?
Yes,
in the evolved state.
Well, no.
Egg out.
They give birth to the base.
Yeah, they give birth to the base one.
Yeah.
Unless they don't have an evolution, obviously.
We egging out.
But yes, it doesn't make super much sense that like they evolve, but they're still the same species. Anyway.
Not super much. No.
Super much sense. That'll be my superhero power. I've got super much sense.
No, your expertise is your superpower, obviously.
My ability to spot a dead pixel at 20 yards. Okay, that's what I got for news. Unless Zach's got some bonus news.
Nope.
Oh, we haven't talked about Alamo.
Oh shit! No, I missed that. Yeah, I skipped. I skipped. Yeah, new hardware alert, ladies and gentlemen.
Hardware.
Straight out of
Nintendo hardware.
Surprise!
I mean, they didn't make it a phone app this time.
That's true. How would you like to be woken up by bokoblins? Actually, I don't know if bokoblins are one of the options, but hey, Nintendo made an alarm clock that's got is like motion sensing, so it like can tell if you're stirring or trying to, like, or intentionally not getting out of bed and just be more annoying or something like that. Anyway, with some Mario and Zelda, and I want to say like there's an Animal Crossing theme coming, but not yet.
The question is, like, what are the most anxiety-inducing Nintendo-themed alarms that you could put on there?
I don't know. Like, I know you just said Nintendo, but I immediately went to the drowning theme from Sonic. Like,
drowning from Sonic.
I mean,
like, from Zelda, you could have like the fucking Guardian spotted you or something.
I mean, I used to have Concept of Love from Jet Set Radio Future as my alarm clock music which was pretty annoying to anyone near my room at uni, because that's quite an abrasive like guitar noise at the start of that, right? That sort of
oh, that's how it would start. Oh my god, yeah.
So that used to wake me up. Would you like the fight music from Zelda? Would that like from the one you really hate from Breath of the Wild?
The one I don't like, the normal enemy encounter.
Yeah.
Boom, boom. That's not abrasive. It's just like I've heard it too many times.
Oh, I think the obvious one for Nintendo, which I guess I'm about to say technically Nintendo, would be like any of the Pokemon music with the low HP beep over it.
Right. You're about to die.
God, yeah.
My thought would
And
be
a couple
the
of the Pokemon games actually had like specific music for that. Like when you were in the low HP state, it played a different panic music, I guess.
Surely the most anxiety-inducing thing would be for Animal Crossing, if they had that theme, would of course be Mr. Resetti. That's how you wake up in the morning.
You wouldn't be able to tell because it just sounds like an Animal Crossing character. Unless you were very deep in the lore enough to know exactly what he sounds like.
Yeah, but he has a like a
Well, I suppose he has some kind of music
theme sound.
But I don't necessarily think his theme music was like dramatic enough.
So what's the honeycomb level from Marrow Pie?
Oh, what that goddamn music? Yeah, that's pretty annoying.
Okay,
that would be pretty annoying.
What could you have? I don't know. Like a crying penguin.
There you go. That's the crying baby from Yoshi's Island. There you go.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a good one. I mean, anything from F-Zero X, pretty much. Just shredding guitars.
It's not quite the same concept.
No. It's not anxiety-inducing. It's just like, get up!
Okay, Alamo. Do you think it'd do well? I bet people will buy this thing.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
How well did Pokemon Sleep and
I mean,
other Nintendo thing do?
I mean, I have some immediate criticisms of the device, like just by looking at it. Right? Okay. One, it looks like it's straight out of a Mickey Mouse cartoon. It's round, red.
It's kind of in the style of the Super Mario theme park kind of stuff.
Yeah. And also, I would say, like, I'm not into the fact that actual they've given you this lovely round black area where the actual screen is just a rectangle in it, right? They didn't bother making a nice big round screen for this thing, presumably like to make room for sensors for all the motion stuff, I guess. But feels like a missed opportunity, and so that means like to get around it, they don't make any of the screen backgrounds bright. Also kind of makes sense, I suppose, but it has to be text on black or stuff on black for it to sort of blend in and look nice. But I bet you're going to look at it and be like, I can see where the screen stops, because that always happens.
Yeah.
So negative points for some of the design personally, but
sure.
But that big button on top is actually a dial as well and stuff. That seems like relatively sensible. Don't just. I was a bit worried they were going to try and do a Kinect and you have to waggle in front of it. Motion sense in front of it to set it up. It's like you've set an alarm for every minute of the day. So no, stop.
I reckon kids will definitely be getting this, and I guess
it's expensive for a kid's alarm clock though. It's like $100.
How much is it?
But...
Oh really? Oh, I guess okay. I have to finally retire my Wallace and Gromit. Morning Gromit, time for walkies.
Nice. That's the news.
And that's the news.
See, now I've got thinking of like, it's just Wallace poking that button, like, to say, I want breakfast. It just goes, but that's what every alarm clock sounds like.
Yeah, pretty right.
Yeah. Wow, you can get it on eBay.
Oh, I'm sure you can.
For how many multiples of the price?
Well, I don't think it's. Is it available? I don't think it is. Has it been officially announced anywhere other than the US? Like,
Ilamo?
Don't
know.
I guess I got an email about it, so like I just didn't see what the UK price was.
It's Diver. What you've been playing?
Alarming.
I mean, are you still feeling satisfied with the factory, Zach? Is the question.
Well, I played somewhat less Satisfactory this last 2 weeks. Somewhat. Although the actual thing that's happened in Satisfactory is that, like, I've been doing things that are not progression, basically. I haven't been making any forward progress towards, like, the next actual goals or anything. I've been kind of putting off doing the massive rebuild of my base that I mentioned last time.
Right.
Because it was sort of a series of events where I was trying to think about what I needed to do, and it led me to a whole series of side stuff, because I want to get rid of my starter base and replace that with a new steel factory, because there's coal right there. But that coal is currently being used for a coal power plant. But I don't really need that coal power plant any longer because I've got these oil power plants. So I'm like, okay, I can free up that coal by getting rid of the coal power plant there and then use the coal to make the steel. So I was like, okay, that seems like a good plan. But then I was like, well, okay, if I'm going to get rid of the coal power plant, and then I do still need to expand my oil power plant, so I need to go do that. So then I was like, okay, I can expand my oil power plant, but I've also got the recipe for turbo fuel, so I can make a better oil power plant by upgrading the regular fuel into turbo fuel. So I was like, okay, I can do that at the same time. And so, but then in order to make the turbo fuel, you need to bring in coal and sulfur to add into the oil to make the turbo fuel. So I was like, okay, I need to build a couple of train stations to ship that stuff in. But fortunately, it's like the coal and sulfur is kind of near to my partially built train network anyway, so that part didn't take too long to link in. So I was like, okay, build the train stations, link in the resources, bring those in. And then, but then I was like, oh, you know what else I could do with coal and sulfur apart from making turbo fuel? I can also make gunpowder, so I can make a factory here that makes all the ammo and explosives that I need for my weapons, and have that then upload to the cloud, and then I'll have access to ammo wherever I am, so I'll never have to worry about running out of ammo while I'm exploring or anything. So yeah, that's what I actually did. So if I didn't redo my entire base and make a steel factory. I didn't expand the oil power plant, which would then allow me to redo my base and build the steel factory. I built an ammo factory, which just happens to use the same resources that I'm then going to use to build the oil factory that I'm then going to use to build the steel factory. So I was like 3 steps removed from what I kind of was meant to be doing.
We're planning on doing.
But, hopefully building this whole ammo factory will save me some amount of time in the long run,
What's
right?
the ammo for?
Or for the guns.
There's guns?
You need to shoot all the wildlife that's in the way of your industrial expansion.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I was like, hopefully building this ammo factory will save me time, I guess. But I don't I'm really not sure it will ever save me more time than it took the time to build it. Maybe. It's kind of hard to tell. Because obviously if you haven't built a factory to do it, you're handcrafting ammo whenever you run out of ammo,
right.
Which is, you're still spending time doing that. But how much ammo are you ever going to use? That's the actual question.
Is it a finite number? Do things spawn?
Well, they respawn if you haven't built anything in the facility, basically. So if you go out and explore an area but then don't come back there for a while, then the enemies come back. But yeah, and it was kind of nice to build this ammo factory, because I like to build things that are in the landscape instead of just on a floating platform above the landscape, which is how some people play that game. So I was like, I could have the trains come up this ridge to where the oil field starts, and then there's this sort of valley area that I can nicely fit this ammo factory in, and then the oil plant can be behind it. So I built this, nice compact ammo factory, and also because it is a finished thing where it's these are the finished products of this factory, there's not going to be any future steps to this. Well, maybe one, but because of that, it's I can actually finish this building. I can make it look like an actual building with actual walls and roofs and shit. I can make it look nice. So I did that. It's
is it less orange?
No, I can't be bothered with messing around with the color schemes in that game. That's too much effort. I just keep everything with the standard Satisfactory orange color palette. I might consider occasionally changing the color of a pipe, because that's kind of helpful to be what's in that pipe. In it, yeah. You can just look at it that way. Not that the pipes don't have indicators on them that show you what's in them.
Yeah, presumably you can see them color further away.
Yes, you can see that a bit easier. But yeah, that ammo factory is now done, and it's busy uploading all the ammo to the cloud, so I'll have that going forwards. But now I can get to the actual building the oil turbo plant. And in multiplayer, we also haven't, we haven't had as many sessions this last 2 weeks either in multiplayer, so we haven't really progressed much on that. All I've been doing in the multiplayer game is just building rails. My job is extending the rail network currently. But also,
are you at home on the rails yet?
Kind of. in my solo game, I'm building it slightly differently. Like in my solo rail networks, I just have like a pillar, and then the rail is like unsupported between the next pillar. It's just like the rail itself is the support, I guess. Whereas in the multiplayer version, I'm just building a full like bridge of platforms that the rail sits on top of, and then has like support struts under it.
Does coal move upon these trains?
Well, if you bring the coal and sulfur to the oil.
Woo!
Yep. The coal train.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not. I should have called it the coal train, like I did in that Factorio video.
Coal train.
I think my coal train is called. Because you don't actually have very many characters to name the trains, not as many as I'd like. So now all my trains and stations are starting to be like labeled just a bunch of letters that mean specific things. It's like you have the first two letters that mean the like area of the map the station is in, then P or D whether it's pick up or drop off, then the number of that station in that area, and then what resource it's carrying. And then, like, on the trains, you have, like, the 2 arrow that tells you the station it's going to.
Oh, God, you've made serial numbers.
Yep, pretty much. Because you just don't have enough. There's not enough. You can't type a descriptive name in there. There's not enough characters. You want to know what's going on.
Just start calling the weird stuff. Like, welcome to
welcome
Drax.
But yeah, in the multiplayer, I just build the rails, which is probably, we've already run into the classic problem of like I'm building the rail on the grid, and it's like this station is very much not on the grid, so there's going to be this interface point where my straight rails are about to join up with this very not bit of straight rail. But most of the time, it's just like I'll just build the junction, and then these 2 ending points of the rail are coming out of the junction. You can do whatever past that.
I've done my part. I've done all I've been contracted to do. I am wiping my hands of it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Here's an invoice.
So yeah, the multiplayer game is actually still pretty much the exact same place as the single player game, because both of those games haven't progressed very far in actual progression terms. We're still both sitting at the start of the aluminium phase. I guess in the multiplayer, we're just about to start on like sulfuric acid and batteries, which is like the next step after aluminium. But I'm not going to get to that in my single player for quite a while, I imagine, after all these other rebuilds and extending that train network. So that's Satisfactory. Oh, and I uploaded the second video today.
Woo!
So that's going to happen. I'm going to get through those 4 or 5, I forget how many there are, recordings that I've got backed up. I haven't done a recording for quite a while because I'm leaving. Basically, these videos are like at the major progression steps, which is usually when you launch the space elevator. So it's just like there's an increasingly large gap between each of those because it takes much longer and gets more complicated.
Look forward to some more rapid fire video output from Happy Salad then.
Well, if I start recording the Factorio expansion when that comes out this week.
Even more to do.
Yeah, who knows how much I might record that or not. I don't know.
Potentially giving me a break.
Well, maybe.
I could take a week off.
If you want to have our video channel be only factory games.
I will leave that to the popularity of...
So next thing that I played this week, because we've hit another one of those points where goddamn everything is getting updates at the same time. It's just like, I've already said, there's like there was Shapes 2 when that came into early access, there's Satisfactory 1.0, there's the Factorio expansion, but then it's like, Timberborn finally released its like update 6 into early access.
That's the Beaver one, right?
Yes, the Beaver one, of the experimental branch. Because I'd known it was in the experimental branch for, I don't know, months at this point, I guess. But now it's finally done, or whatever. So now it's just in the early access branch. And I hadn't played it before that because I was waiting for it to get done.
It's weird, isn't it, that there's an experimental branch within the early access branch. Surely that's what early access is. Anyway.
Well, not quite, though, because I guess like early access is still not a finished game.
But
that's why there's the experimental branch.
More playable than the experiment. Okay, maybe, yeah.
Because you couldn't come out of early access into release unless it was actually the whole game was finished, I guess.
Yeah, but it's just strange. Like, why not just put the experimental stuff into the main branch so everyone uses it?
Well, I mean, you can opt into it, I guess.
Yeah, well, obviously, but yeah, it's a slightly odd concept to me.
I mean, that's why there's the betas tab. Even though that doesn't even mean the same thing, even then.
Not now.
But yeah, I played this new update, which is kind of fancy. Well, I mean, there was the older part of it, which I hadn't played before, which actually I think might have been in the previous update. I just hadn't played that one as well. But there was the bad water, where it's like you get like, they changed all the maps so that as well as like the main river, there's like these sub tributaries that are like polluted water. And that is also a resource. So they changed it so you make explosives out of the bad water rather than out of like paper like they were before.
Beavers with guns.
Yeah, pretty much. Not quite. It's for blowing up landscape. But yeah, so I hadn't played with the bad water before. But the newer part of this patch is that they've changed the water physics system so it's actually like real now. It used to be a fake like 2.5D like plane of water that was on the landscape, but didn't actually simulate it. I mean, it simulated flow, but it didn't simulate it in 3D exactly. It simulated depth in that way. I guess in the kind of a creeper world way.
Right, okay.
But like, so now they've changed it so it's actually a proper 3D system, which means you can, build like aqueducts and stuff. You can have water going over other water and over buildings in contained channels and whatnot.
Kind of neat.
Yes, so it's much more fancy. And that also allows you to do more fancy things with the bad water. And also, you have the bad water that exists.
I love that it's just called bad water.
You have the bad water that exists all the time, where there's usually like one or two streams of it. And depending on how nice the map you're playing is, it usually like merges into the main river below where your settlement is. So you don't really have to worry about it polluting anything until you want to interact with it. But then there's also, you get the seasonal droughts where the water dries up and obviously you have to build the dams to contain the water. That was the main trick. But they also introduced, occasionally, instead of a drought, you get a bad tide where all the water turns into bad water. So like the main river flow turns into bad water as well.
Yeah.
And therefore fills up all your dammed area with bad water.
Is this finally like the answer to the question, like what's the opposite of good tidings?
Yeah, pretty much. The bad tide. But yeah, that's where the like new water management 3D physics comes in, where you're like, if you want to deal with a bad tide, some of the easier maps sort of have it built in where it's like, oh look, if you look at the water source where all the water comes from, there'll be like a dried up riverbed that's like blocked off that flows around the map instead of through it. So if you can get up there and then like build a automatic sluice gate on it, so that, because that's one of the new blocks, is like this automatic sluice gate that can detect the bad water. So when the bad water concentration starts to rise, it like closes off the main channel, opens up the dump channel.
How technologically advanced are these beaters?
Pretty advanced. Although I feel like this level of automation is kind of weirdly like magical. There's no
wouldn't it be
sensors or anything.
Yeah, wouldn't it make more sense if there was just a beaver hanging out watching?
Yeah, it should be like a job. You should have to employ someone on those gates, really.
And then go like, that don't taste right.
Yeah.
Hey man, hey man, this water ain't right, dog. Beaver person.
But then on the other hand, like the way the floodgates worked anyway was always like that. Like it was just a UI thing where you just like set how high you want the floodgate to be, and it would just go. So really all the automatic sluice gate does is make that automatic so you don't have to manually open a bit of UI to do it.
Oh, that's sluice.
Yep. But yeah.
And keep the Coltrane references coming.
On the easier maps, it has these nice obvious channels where it's like, oh yeah, you just shove the bad water down there. But then if you're on one of the hard maps, maybe you want to actually build an aqueduct. Or do something really dumb, like make your river multi-level, where like the bit that flows through your base where the normal water is, when the bad tide comes, just divert it onto the upper level, where it flows along the same path, but just higher. So the bad water can bypass the water area. But yeah, and I guess this update also added like the end game It's not a rocket for a change. You don't launch a rocket like in every other game. But there is a big.
I mean, it'd be quite obvious, wouldn't it? It would just be a log with a beaver like spike on the top.
There is a big building that you now have to fill up with a bunch of resources right at the end and trigger it to win.
Which like that's it. We're good forever. We've got enough stuff.
Kind of
until it catches on fire.
But the thing that this patch still hasn't really solved with this game is that like there's a big problem with like stability that I often talk about in these kind of games, where just like you reach a point where once you've built like one or two of each of the resource buildings as you go up the tech tree, you kind of reach the point of stability where it's like, in order to have any more population, you'd have to build one more of everything or whatever. So you kind of naturally stop at this certain amount of population where it can be supported by this number of buildings. And then that means that then there's a big like gap where there's not really anything to do but like wait for resources to pile up. You either have to wait for those number of buildings to build up the resources towards the end game buildings, or you have to build like an entire new town essentially, because you have to build one more of everything and get all the population for it. And it's like, that's not very well balanced, I don't think. Like, I
was going to ask, why wouldn't you just spend the time like just getting bigger?
It's because it's too easy to sit in the stability zone and like just let stuff build up. And also, I think it might also be a problem of like there not being enough uses for some of the later resources, maybe. Because like if you want to build a huge dam, because the dam block kind of inherently has to be early game, it's basically just made of logs. So it's not made of planks, or it doesn't use gears or anything. So there's not like any use of those higher tiered components.
I mean, I'm sure it looked pretty cool if you had a dam that was just laden with gears on the front.
Yeah.
Just all spinning.
And there's not even like a metal version of the dams, because like you get metal as a resource later on, and you can build like, well, robots, I guess. You can make an automated workforce instead of using your actual beavers, which is sort of the end goal as well, of like replace your actual workforce with robots so that the beavers can just have a leisure lifestyle and get happier, which is sort of another goal. But you know, there's no dam. Occasionally, some like the automatic sluice uses a little bit of metal, but there's not like a straight metal dam or something that would, I don't know, hold water back better. I mean, obviously the dams are perfect unless they flow over the top, even the ones made of wood. So you'd have to rebalance the game differently to make that a thing. But like, because the base dam is just made of logs and you can just grow more trees, it's just like, you've got all this higher tech industry that's not really used even in mega projects. So there's not really any reason to build more of it. You just accumulate the resources in the background while you're doing a mega project and then build the endgame thing and then win. It's just like, I don't know, that does feel a bit weirdly balanced, basically. But yes, the new water physics is nice and fancy, and it does give you opportunities to make more fancy projects.
But it's still early access. It's time for them to solve all this.
Oh, and I guess
something else.
I guess the other thing that I hadn't done before is I played
Sharper Teeth.
I played the other faction, the Iron Teeth faction, where
there you go.
It's slightly more focused on metal, but not really. But the factions are kind of different in that they have slightly different, like, efficiency in different aspects. Like the first faction is more efficient in farming, but the second faction is like more about processed food. So you need the Iron Teeth faction is more about,
give me them nugs.
Yeah, is more about everything uses mechanical power. So like all the food processing buildings need the mechanical power, which means you actually have to build like a lot more water wheels or whatever. But that faction also has like bigger water wheels and like that sort of thing. And then one of their late game things is both factions have.
What do you got? I'm riding 19s. We got 22s.
Yeah. Both factions have a thing that they can build towards the end of the game where you can seal up the bad water sources, so you can shut off those bad water flows and then like toggle them open and closed if you want. Although that doesn't help with the bad tide where the main river changes. Sure. But the Iron Teeth version of that bad water sealing device allows you to actually keep the bad water on all the time, even during droughts, which means you can then use that water flow to power water wheels even during droughts.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay.
So you can actually use the bad water fully as like an actual power source at all times.
But your minions can't go swimming.
Oh, sure. You have to keep the regular water dam somewhere.
Do they get like fancy chem suits, like beavers in chem suits?
No.
They can go swimming.
They do get contaminated if they go in the bad water. But then you just have to put them in a med bed for a while, I guess.
Med bed.
So yeah, that's...
Do the factions play at the same time, or is it just a choice of the style you're playing?
Yeah, it's just a full separate, like...
You can't like direct bad water into another faction. Like.
No. It is just a starting choice on the map where you're just like, which one do you want to play?
That's interesting.
Yeah. Although it is kind of weird that it's like, choose your faction and there's two of them. It's like, is there ever going to be more than two of them?
Well, maybe. Yeah. I mean, it gives them room.
Yeah.
That's kind of a neat way of doing it. Like if we, we can mix up the flow by literally changing all of the buildings with the same systems.
I mean,
that's kind of neat.
That was kind of one of the kind of cool things about Against the Storm as well, when they were like, when they added the new races to that, and it was like each race comes with its own speciality and set of buildings or whatever.
I suppose it's similar to factions in any game. The more I say that, but also, it just seems like generally a good idea.
It is just kind of weird that like because there's only two and you don't get the Iron Teeth from the start. It's like there's a thing where it's like if you reach 15 on happiness, you unlock the Iron Teeth, and then that UI element is just there forever, even after you've done that.
Oh,
it's like what? But what else could you get?
Can someone say bug?
Well, it's not really a bug. It's just like it's kind of a bug. It's just the unlock screen is part of the happiness UI, I guess. Speaking of UI bugs, I suppose, last thing I played, because this is also just updated, and I had been kind of waiting to play it, even though I'm very unlikely to see any part of this update. I just hadn't played it for a while. Space Engineers.
Oh, okay.
I went back into that, and I haven't played that for a long time.
What drew you back into that, given everything else that's happening in fact?
Well, it was because they were making news posts about the upcoming update. So
it's not even out yet?
No,
you still went back.
No, it is out.
Oh,
it's just come
out.
But as I say, it's like I'm unlikely to see any of the content of this update,
right?
Because it's sort of late game-ish, kind of. But I hadn't played it for ages anyway, so quite a lot of this stuff is sort of new anyway. Maybe not exactly new, but I would say since the last time I played it, more stable. It's like every time I've played that game, I think it's just like the physics engine of it has got better.
Oh, okay.
Where it's just like, now you can actually have like rovers with wheels and they actually work and you can actually just drive.
I remember that being a complaint before, like, especially in multiplayer, that it runs into trouble.
Well, I mean, that's a different situation with multiplayer, like the synchronization or whatever. And the physics engine of that game still does have its limits. Like, it has a capped maximum speed that you can move at.
It's the one where like the stuff you build is block based, essentially.
Yes.
Like, a bit like Besiege. That's where my mind is going.
Not quite, probably even more limited than Besieges,
right?
In terms of block shapes, at least. But yeah, the problem with Space Engineers in the old days was just like the physics engine was jiggly. I guess it was very easy to accidentally
a bit early Kerbal.
Well, yeah, a bit early Kerbal. Yeah, it was very easy to like. If you rotated a piston and like two parts of the machine collided, like the whole thing would just fly apart and just explode, which sucked. But it's gotten a lot more stable now. I mean, the pistons and shit will still break if you do try and ram them into each other in an incorrect way. But generally, everything is a bit more stable, a bit more doesn't shake around so much when you're moving parts around. And there's even extra options you can turn on to like share inertia or whatever that kind of neutralizes the wobbliness some more. And yeah, as I said, since the last time I played, the wheels have become like actually properly viable for building just rovers on the ground of the planets. So yeah, I went back in and fiddled around with that. But then it also still has the weird like Space Engineers has never solved these weird like UI problems where it's just like, why does this still work like this? Why is this still weirdly jank in specific ways where it's like you have to push this button and then push this button, and all just things where it's just like why would you do this at all? Like, I was trying to make a rover. I was like, okay, I think I understand all these sliders for like wheel friction and torque and all this stuff, and like how high the suspension is and all this. So I was setting all these settings, and it's like, okay, this rover sort of functions, but it's real slow. But I can't figure out why it's real slow, because like the battery is definitely putting out enough power for the wheels, and the wheels aren't like, they have enough grip, and it's not like it's uphill or whatever, and like, but it just seems really slow. But the thing was, for some goddamn reason, so like movement speed of ships on your UI is measured in meters per second for some reason, because I guess it's more scientific to fit with in space engineering.
Yes.
But in the UI for wheels, where you change the maximum velocity that limits the top speed of the vehicle, that slider is in kilometers per hour.
Because it's a vehicle, I guess.
Yes, because it's a vehicle, that like it sort of makes sense where you're like, oh, obviously if you wanted people to understand how fast the vehicle is going, you'd put it in kilometers per hour.
But then that creates a problem that you can't collate the two numbers.
Yes, because then when I'm driving around and I'm looking at my top speed, and it's like, well, my top speed according to the UI is like 14 meters per second. And then I go into the wheel setting, it's like, but I've set it to 25. Except I haven't. I've set it to 25 kilometers per hour.
Yeah.
And it's like, god damn it. Why is that like that?
That is a bit weird.
Like, there is a tiny amount of logic, but it's not good logic.
There should be at least a toggle. Maybe,
or it should just say both.
Or both, yeah.
But yes, that is one of those things with Space Engineers where there are just bits like that, where it's like, this works in such a weirdly specific way that where if you're not paying too much attention, or you haven't like fully understand what this even means, then you're going to get screwed because of something that doesn't seem to make any sense. Or like even just making the wheels, when you build the wheel suspension, how do you know which way up is meant to be up? The game doesn't tell you. You have to go look that up somewhere.
Wait, really? What? The springs?
Yeah, because the
springs
like,
have a specific way they want to compress.
Yeah, because they have like the piston part that acts as the suspension points downwards or whatever.
I see, because they want one side to be static and the other side to be moving, right? Like,
kind of. And also because there's like you can hold down a button to like compress your suspension to be able to like basically jump with vehicles, but also to like go under stuff. So if you don't have the suspension the right way up, that won't work.
Ooh, air suspension.
Yep.
Fancy.
But yeah, the game does not tell you which way up is up. You just have to either look it up or just guess, or infer it by the model of the block and try and figure out which way up that is.
If I was to upgrade my car, I'd probably get the version with air suspension. Not that I
need suspension.
No, not at all. It just strikes me as something stupid you could do. What do you want to? What are we doing right now? I'm just lowering the car.
Yep.
Don't know why. Just a button I could push.
I have that set up on my Rover's UI in Space Engineers, the lower the suspension button. I just use that so that I can line up the docking port, basically, because the docking port on the base is slightly too high.
Right. Low rider.
But yeah, I messed around in Space Engineers. The trouble I always have with that game is I want to play it in like proper survival mode, where you like spawn in a drop pod on a planet and then you have to collect the resources and build the base. But that means I never really get to the actual space part of Space Engineers.
Right.
Or, I mean, you can just start in space, but I feel like that skips a lot of stuff as well. Because the progression is sort of designed for coming from a planet, because you start with, on the planet, the resources, you can detect them when they're under the surface a little bit, but like you only have access to up to like silver. Gold tends to be a bit further underground, so you need to actually have like an ore detector to be able to find it. But then the planets, I believe, don't have platinum or uranium on them, and you need like platinum for like the proper space engines, and you need uranium to run like the nuclear reactors to be able to power spaceships. So in order to get to the point of having full spaceships, you usually need to run like hydrogen engines using ice that you harvest off the planets to fly into space, and then you can get to the uranium and platinum and then bring that back and refine it and then upgrade from there. But, you know, that's so far into the progression of that game where it's just like you've got to get through all the ground-based stuff first and be able to mine all these resources. And I've never worked out I'm not actually very good at building the ships in that game, so I've never really worked out a good way to make it like a planet-based mining solution. Usually my solution is just like find a good iron deposit and then just build like a giant piston arm with a drill attached to it that just digs directly into the ground static as part of your base.
Cause it.
Yeah. Because mainly what you need a shit ton of iron, but you don't need necessarily that much of everything else. So if you can find one good iron deposit, obviously put the main mining drill on that. But I've never come up with a better solution for like either a rover with drills or like a small flying ship with drills. Mainly because, again, it's another one of those things about the UI of Space Engineers where it's just like the physics of it is kind of realistic, where like as you mine stuff and it starts to fill up the storage spaces of your ship, it gets heavier and it can get unbalanced depending on which container is full.
Oh, interesting.
So but there's not really enough feedback on that for you to like intelligently design ahead of that.
Yeah, or you don't necessarily have enough control, I bet, to try and be like, oh, I could balance this if I could intelligently pump to both tanks.
Kind of can. You can like move stuff around and you like can like turn on and off like ports basically out of certain.
Yeah, but you'd want it automatic.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of can. But I mean, the problem is that I have with it is that what it needs is a way to simulate full load, basically. Like when you're building, you can like turn on show center of gravity or whatever, but that only shows unloaded.
Right, yeah.
You need to be like, imagine all these containers were full of ore. Now what does it look like?
Yeah, what happens? Is my suspension boned?
Yeah. So yeah, again, that's just another one of those things about Space Engineers where it's just like there's a lot of stuff in that game where you just don't know until you've played it a bunch and experienced it and fiddled around.
Somewhat untestable.
Yeah.
Unless you build a literal test rig for your vehicle to be like, right, I'm going to fill up these containers.
Yeah, or just like go into creative mode and just do it in a completely separate save file or whatever.
Yeah. And go, no, this works. Pulling it in.
So yeah, that's Space Engineers.
Engineers.
I don't know if I'm going to continue playing that. That was just a small experiment.
A refamiliarization ahead of the updates. Oh no, the updates came out. Sorry, you said that already.
The update did come out.
I'm so confused.
But as I said, I'm not going to get to that. The one thing I will say about Space Engineers is I've been intentionally playing it with it hidden on Steam, so that other people can't see me playing it.
Oh, to not be tempted into multiplayer.
Yeah, to not lure anyone into that when we're already doing like Satisfactory. And I can get away with sneaking into Space Engineers for a while, but let's not tempt anyone else into starting that.
Oh, good heavens, you didn't say that on a publicly available podcast.
I'm sure they won't listen to it. That was all I did, apart from Rocket League and Dirk.
Classic.
And what about Rob?
Oh, hello. Yeah, I've been a bit scattershot again. I haven't stuck with Star Tracker. Let's just get that out of the way. I played a little bit more of it, and I got to the areas where there's now basically like electrical storms and solar flares.
Right.
And that shit just gets to make what was quite a chill experience a bit more annoying, because what can you do in a game like that except make things more annoying? So that's basically what the solar flares are in particular boned me up a couple of times. Thank heavens for the autosave being quite generous, so I could just literally just reload a save rather than live with my mistakes. Because when a flare goes off if you're in a solar system and a flare goes off, you have to put the shutters down, otherwise your cabin overheats.
Right.
And that happened. A flare went off whilst I was doing some faffery in my cab to try and repair my gravity drive that had failed. And so I basically cooked inside my cabin. And I was on a job at the time, so I got a whole bunch of fines and ended up in serious debt. And I'm like, nah, fuck that shit. I'm just going to do all that again, but make sure my shutters are down. Just preemptively because when if you're driving and a solar flare goes off, you have to basically just shut the shutters and use the like little green monitors you've got to drive the truck.
Right.
Because even if you switch to external camera, they thought of that, and it just whites out basically. It goes all distorted and skanks. You can't even use like the third person camera mode to drive around. It's like, no, you're gonna have to suck it up. You're gonna have to. It makes it really, really quite hard to drive. and line things up properly, which is basically all that game is. So there's that, and the electrical storms just basically build up charge on your hull, and after a while, if it gets too strong, it will pop one of your electrical resistors or sort of things that you've got, and you need to keep repairing and replacing those. So one more thing to keep repairing and replacing if you're driving through those sorts of systems and getting too zapped. I might go back to it, but it's just not been that. It's just not been that couple of weeks, and I don't know why. Because I just drifted onto our other stuff. For instance, I don't really know what
dramatic pause.
Well, I'm just trying to work out how to frame this because I don't know what prompted me to start playing this. But I just started playing the original Castlevania.
What, on the NES?
On the NES, yeah. Well, emulated on the Steam Deck, obviously. But
no, not even Nintendo Online. Is that on there? I don't remember.
I bet it is.
Yeah, I would say so. It's a classic.
Yeah. But no, I'm emulating it on the Steam Deck because obviously it looks real nice on that OLED screen. But man, that game kind of sucks. I know people think it's a classic, and but it has it's one of those classic this is NES difficulty, right? Yeah. And you get hit, you get knocked back into holes. Thank God for save states is all I'm saying, because that is the only way that game is in the modern era, that is the only way that game is even remotely palatable. And then I reached death, the boss death, and that is some bullshit. Basically, you, as far as I can work out, you kind of have to get there with the correct, with an appropriate sub weapon. Otherwise, you are totally and utterly screwed. And unfortunately, and the path to him is incredibly annoying as well, with some tough with tough enemies to kill, and the infamous Medusa heads that have such they basically sine wave up and down the screen and spawn at regular intervals. So you're really frequent intervals. So you're constantly dodging them whilst trying to deal with these shield axe throwing bastards on the way, and making sure you don't accidentally pick up the incorrect sub weapon, which I've done a billion times, and I go, oh Christ, I'm gonna have to do that again. I can't beat that guy. I can't beat death. I'm too old.
It's a metaphor.
Yeah,
life's a bitch, and then you die.
Yeah, so I think I'm done with the original Castlevania, but I can now at least say I've played a Castlevania game. Okay, it's not the ones that people really love, it's not the Metroidvania Castlevanias, but I've done it. I've done one. Well, I didn't finish it, but
enough to
I gave it a go.
Play another one in the series, or?
Well, maybe, because I think the first 3, maybe 4, in fact, aren't that way. I don't know what Super Castlevania might be where they started going a bit Metroidvania-y, or was I don't know if it was that one or if Symphony of the Night was really the first. So yeah, I might have a cursory look at Castlevania 2 or 3. I think Castlevania 4 is on my SNES Classic, so maybe I should play that as God intended on a SNES.
Well, sort of.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not. I mean, I can kind of see a little bit, I guess, of why it was considered a classic. The music is good. It's got the classic theme. Obviously, it invented the classic Castlevania theme. So, I can see what they were going for. It just doesn't necessarily hold up. I don't think it holds up, especially when you've got games like that Bloodstained remake, like the NES-styled one of those they did, which is kind of the same thing, just better.
Yeah, but it's not actually a NES game.
No, it's not. It's not. But it's and I guess Bloodstained is the closest I've come to a Castlevania-esque Castlevania game. But Bloodstained was real good, so maybe I should play Symphony of the Night or Dawn of Sorrows or something like that and get in if I want to really feel what Castlevania is about.
Maybe.
Yeah, so I did that. So the other thing I did on my Steam Deck is I played through this game that's been in my Steam library for ages, and I've been wanting to get to it, and I probably could have done this at any point because I played a little game called 140, or 140 or however you want to say it. And it really is a little game, because I've got 100 minutes exactly on the clock, and I'm probably not going to touch it again. but that means I played through all of the main levels. Ozzy's not very happy about it. It's basically it's pretty cool, because what it is it's basically like if you took Thomas Was Alone, right? And the fact that everything is like basic shapes, but instead wrapped that in rhythm platforming,
right?
I guess hence the name 140, right? It's 140 BPM, and then gave it kind of a color aesthetic that is reminiscent of what a Spectrum would do when it was loading tapes. Kind of like just bright pastel, well, not pastel, but like just basic, what do they call them? Primary colors. Yeah.
Right, those crazy when it was loading.
Yeah, kind of cover it in that sort of aesthetic. And then give it a kind of, I wouldn't necessarily call it garage, but like I thought, like with a name like 140, it was going to be on a 4 on the floor house banger of a soundtrack. But it's kind of a bit more edgier than that. It's got a bit of a bit of teeth to it, and like this motif that runs throughout the entire experience, and this track basically just evolving with what you do, and that's kind of what it is. And like, so all the platforms and the world move to the beat of this music, or to the audio of the various lines of music, the stems per se. And you don't have to do your platforming on beat or anything like that, but you kind of are, because you're dealing with the world on beat. Like it starts off real simple, like there'll be like a noise that plays like every bar or something, and that means there's going to be a moving platform nearby that's moving in time with the but then towards but then towards the end of the game, you're getting like literal like synth pieces that are slightly syncopated and slightly off, like dun 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 or something, that but that's moving a def block around it, like, and it moves in steps with each one of those presses, and it's like, okay, I need to slip through that gap at just the right moment. Weirdly, when you finish 3 of the levels, you then get an achievement saying finished the main game, and then there's a 4th level. So I don't quite know what that's about. And then there are actually 4 more levels after that, but what they are is they're just mirrored, as far as I can tell, they're mirrored versions of the first 4 levels, but it expects you to do them without dying. And I'm like, nope. That's when I checked out. I had a go at level 1, and it's like, and then died most of the way through it, and I'm like, and it just puts you right back to the main menu, and I'm like, no, I'm not sure I'm going to be doing that again. This game is cool and all, but like that's a level of challenge I don't necessarily care for. Yeah, it's a neat little thing. Oh, also the boss fights. It's got boss fights at the end of each stage, and those are kind of interesting, because things are happening on beat again, and you're mostly worried about dodging in those. But the third boss in particular is making you do some serious mental gymnastics to make it work. Like it's kind of like, I get like Super Hexagon vibes a little bit out of that last boss. A little bit like you've got your character turns into like an arrow that moves around 4 sides of a square in the middle of the screen, and there are these death arrows that kind of appear around you. And you can obviously move to what side of the square you are. But in time with the beat, you will rotate around the square regardless of your own control. So you have to...
Right.
Like, so but it changes every other beat, which is fun. So like the first time, on one bar of music, there'll be a note that moves you 90 degrees around the square. But then the next bar, you're going to get another beat that moves you 180 degrees around the square. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to shoot the arrows that are around it. So you pick out the one that is going to come at you because of the direction it's facing. And by shooting it, you turn it around. But you've got to position yourself really quickly with that in mind, so that you twist around the square at just the right time, so you hit the arrow that's going to kill you. You don't have a lot of time to do it. And then it just builds on that through 3 different stages of difficulty. So by the 3rd stage, you're getting the arrows themselves rotate around you whilst you're trying to deal with your own rotation inside the thing, and it's all happening on beat. And it's
oh my god,
it's some work to wrap your head around. But it was pretty enjoyable, is what I would say. It's like you sort of go into it and go, oh damn, that's pretty hard. But then if you like bash your head against it for a little while, you'll start picking up some patterns. And you can't just do the same thing each run on that one as well. It's randomizing the positions of the arrows a bit, so you do have to kind of just get good at the pattern and adjusting as you go. That was a fun boss. Like simple, right? But that's kind of what this game does well. Like it has a simple premise, executes it well, and 100% doesn't outstay its welcome. Like,
well, unless you want to play the bit where you don't die.
Well, yeah, if you want to have a go at that and get the other 50% of the achievements, then good luck to you. But yeah, if you're up for that, the challenge is definitely there. I don't know if the boss fights would turn up in those 4 levels. If they do, you're in trouble. You're in real trouble. Yeah, it was a fun little game. So yeah, the other thing, I've been doing some Xbox stuff. Been back on that.
Yeah.
But I want to take a little sidebar moment to talk about a problem I've been having with my personal setup since the dawn of time. Right, we've talked about this a few times on the podcast, where like I can put my Xbox into surround sound mode, but the way things seem to work with my setup, like I should say my Series X is plugged into my TV, and my TV then feeds my amp the audio over ARC. Not eARC. Yep. I should make that very clear. It is just over regular ARC. So I'm a little bit limited to the technology stack I can use there. DTS Digital is the one that works. But the problem with that is, and I believe it's a Samsung TV problem, is that it introduces hella latency.
Oh, no.
And so I haven't actually been using surround sound with my Series X. I've been using just put it in stereo mode because the latency problem goes away. And I'm pretty certain, as I said, from doing some research, that it's just how Samsung processes the signal,
right, and
then puts it down ARC that it introduces latency. So I went and bought a little box that Zach is now probably actually looking at on my desk. This EasyQ or ESQ HDMI 2.1 audio extractor that you you basically put in the middle of the chain. So you stick your HDMI cable out your Xbox into this box, which pretends it's a 5.1 receiver. So your Xbox is basically sending out the right signal to it. And then it spits out an optical cable. So I can chuck an optical Toslink, SPDIF, whatever you want to call it, straight into my amp.
SPDIF, yeah.
And that does away with the latency problem. And in my case, totally friggin' works.
Wow. Random.
Yeah. Downside is I tried this with the Steam Deck because it like the box just happens to have 2 input ports and 1 output port. So I thought, I could use that as a handy HDMI, like an extra HDMI port as well. Steam Deck is not happy with it at all.
Okay.
Steam Deck like weirdly has some compatibility problems. I don't know. It's a bit I'm using the official dock and it seems to be a bit flaky.
Really?
With being, it's not 100% happy with. I don't know if it's a Samsung thing again or if it's a dock thing, but the two every now and then don't really get on, and I have to do some faff like to put the dock back into TV safe mode or something, and then go and reset the resolution to what is the best I can manage out of it, which is 1440p 120. Out of the dock. And then it seems a little bit happier. But I think I haven't tried this, but I think you might be able to work around it because the Steam Deck doesn't out of the box support surround sound anyway. But you can turn it on if you go into desktop mode on the Steam Deck and then turn on 5.1 from the Linux, the Arch Linux side of things. So then maybe if I fed that signal into the EasyQ box with in 5.1 mode, maybe it will be happy. But as it stood, right, there was just no sound coming out of it. And I'm like, that's frustrating. Because I could have just plugged my PS4 straight through, or if I got a PS5, I could plug that straight through because they don't have optical cables either. Blah.
Right.
I just figured this would be a nice solution to me not having to buy a very expensive amp to get proper eARC, and or not even eARC. I wouldn't use that. I guess with that solution, I just plug the Series X straight into the amp and then have the amp tell the TV what to do. Anyway, but that's that's the ideal, but it's much more expensive. This box was like 30 quid on Amazon Prime Day. Bargain. Solves a problem. Recommend.
Okay, for someone with that incredibly niche problem who's listening to this.
Man, most people would barely even notice, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm one of those.
I'm one of those. Latency.
Yeah, they probably try and
know they had the problem in the first place.
Well, yeah, they'd probably try and play if they tried to play like Hi-Fi Rush, and then be like, "Why do I suck at this?" And it's like, "This is why you suck at this." Latency, it's a problem. Yeah, so I did that, and then I tested it out on. Hey, I went back to Riders Republic because I said I was going to give it another shot. I focused a bit more on just doing the downhill riding, and then did a little bit of the snowboard trickery levels, or snow tricks. I think they just call it. You can be on a board or you can be on skis. Those are kind of fine. They're fine. They're fine. Like I said before, it's fine. I managed to sort out the HDR so it looked less horrid and weird. Turning up the exposure setting in the options seemed to be the trick. That game is still fine, but it proves that the surround sound is working. So, it fulfilled that role. And then I went and played Forza 4 for the exact same reason. I went and installed Forza 4, I should point out. I went and bought and installed that just before it went off sale because Forza 4 is now delisted.
Oh, really? Oh, just in time then.
I think that's gone now. So I went and picked that up, thinking I could drive around some England a little bit, or some Scotland. Actually, more likely it's Scotland. Kind of forgot how tiny the Forza 4 map actually kind of is compared to the size of the 5 map and the. It feels much smaller.
Mm.
I think I prefer Forza 4 to Forza 5. Just in terms of how the game feels and how it is to drive. And it still looks great. Sure, it's not running any next-gen stuff. It's not it's not been updated, I suppose, particularly for Series X. But it's got, it runs at 60 and stuff on the Series X version. And it's still a good-looking game, so, I played a bit of that. I had a good time. That's all I got to say about Forza 4. I didn't run into any, stupid, you're the superstar moments or anything like that while I was playing it. Oh, no, actually, that's a lie. I did one of the Top Gear
I mean, it can't be avoided.
Well, it wasn't quite like that. I did one of the Top Gear levels that I kind of forgot were in it, and it's basically has the classic Forza problem where it's a Top Gear themed level, but because it's a Top Gear themed challenge, there's a voiceover that runs throughout the whole thing, and if you restart it, you get all that VO again. Ugh. And it kind of sucks. I just want to drive real fast. These people need to stop talking at me. People need to stop talking to you in Forza. That's what it is. So all those problems are still there. But the main thing I've been putting my time into is Flintlock, which Zach saw a little bit of a very brief amount of me doing last week. Flintlock Siege of Dawn. Now this is came out on Game Pass a couple weeks ago. Was showed off, I think, at several Xbox events. For those that can't remember it, and I don't blame you if you don't, it's the one with the weird fox thing, feathered fox. It's looks a bit like a character action game from the outside going in, a bit action adventure, maybe a bit God of War-y. What it actually is a Souls-like.
Oh, okay.
Which I haven't actually played a Souls-like before. This is probably a bad entry point.
Okay. Well, got to start somewhere.
Well, exactly. Yeah, like maybe actually
Dark Souls.
Yeah, maybe a Souls-like is.
I mean, you just played
actually
Castlevania. That's basically a Souls.
Yeah, I guess. Well, maybe a Souls-like is actually the best way in because you don't necessarily have to deal with the full breadth of bullshit that those games fire at you. But
apparently, you might be dealing with less well-designed bullshit.
A different set of it. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So it follows a similar path.
Carefully crafted bullshit.
Yeah,
you're going to increase your expertise.
Yeah. So it follows a similar pattern of like at its core, it's a deliberate combat, as in no animation cancelling, nothing like that. I think it's pulling more from. If I had to say, it's probably pulling more from the Bloodborne model than it is from the Souls model. In that you can't play sword and shield or anything like that. You have an axe and you have guns, which is very Bloodborne. So like there are bits of that style of combat that I'm just not used to. Right, I'm used to more of a Bayonetta kind of thing where it's like, oh, I'm in trouble, hit the block button, and the block is near instant, or you do a dodge, right, and you dodge into the dodge cancels out of whatever you're doing. This is very much not that, and as a result, it feels clunky, and I'm finding finding it hard to gel with the rhythm of combat in this style. Like if you commit to attack, you are committing to that attack. You can't block out of it until you've swung and had your recovery frames or whatever. It's a bit more fighting gamey, I guess, in its makeup as a result of that. And I'm personally struggling with it, so that makes it a little bit hard to gauge whether it's good or not. But it then has the similar sort of like Souls, I suppose, equivalent, which in this game is just straight up called reputation rather than Souls. You gain reputation for doing deeds and doing kills and stuff in the world, and you lose it all if you die, and you will die.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got to corpse run, which is annoying if you've died in an area that it's like, oh, I probably shouldn't be here, but oh shit, I had an awful lot of reputation I've just lost. I need to get back there and then get the hell out of Dodge somehow. It could be very frustrating, that mechanic. I don't know. It adds that sort of tension and that risk to everything, and that feeling is a little bit intoxicating. I kind of get that the actual angst, I suppose, of that whole situation is kind of fun. I can see that, but when it does go wrong, God, that's annoying. So annoying. It's like, oh, damn it, I just lost thousands of reputation. Oh, and then of course, because it's a Souls-like combat game, things can go bad real fast. Like, you don't take many hits, and the enemies aren't the Assassin's Creed style, we're just going to stand around and wait and attack one by one. No. They are all working autonomously on their own at all times. You're going to get attacked from any angle. There is no on-screen indicator if you're being attacked from off-screen. Deal with it. And so if things go bad, they can go bad real quick. You can get hit, you can get hit stun as a result of that hit. You can then just get like absolutely slaughtered by other things hitting you one after the other. And there will sometimes just be absolutely nothing you can do about it unless you manage to avoid absolutely everything. And that can be really annoying. Or you need to approach the fight a bit differently, like go into it and perhaps try and kite a few guys off the main group because, that's still a thing, and deal with it slowly. Or you get out your musket if you've got to that point in the game and literally snipe things out of the picture from afar, which you have limited shots for, obviously. Very limited shots. It's that whole thing, as far as I can tell, but my problems with it are, it looks to me, to my eye, the combat looks faster than a standard Dark Souls. And I can't really compare that to Bloodborne. I don't really have much of a familiarity with how fast Bloodborne was. But the combat feels fast compared to how Dark Souls looks. But that doesn't mean you have. I don't necessarily feel like I have enough warning sometimes before I've committed to an attack before an enemy, then you can see winding up and it's like, oh crap, I'm not actually going to be able to get my block off in time or dodge off in time by the time I attack things. And I was like, because they've just started an attack in the middle of my swing and I'm like, well, I'm boned. Like maybe I just shouldn't be as aggressive. Maybe that's the lesson I need to learn here. But being aggressive often pays off because you're just killing things quicker, right? And so you're leaving less of a window to actually get screwed over. It's a difficult balance. Like, I'm finding it hard to say I'm having a bad time of it because, like, it is getting better as a sentence. Well, yeah, like it is getting better the more I play. Like, and I don't know if that's just because of how the progression system works, or because I'm getting better. I haven't really figured that out. I've got more options available to me now. I've got more skills. Oh, that's the other thing. You don't have to wait until you get to a bonfire in order to just bank skills and buy skill. You can do that at any time. So if you've built up enough reputation to just upgrade a skill, you can do that just in the field. Just, I'm having it right now. I'm banking all these souls. I don't care. Upgrades and stuff you still have to do at specific points, but yeah, so I don't know if I'm improving or if I'm just getting enough skills where I feel more adept or I'm feeling more capable because of my player level or some equivalent.
But either way, improving.
Yeah, I'm finding my rhythm with it, but it's been a bit of an adjustment. It's not come super naturally to me. And maybe that's just how it is with Soulsy games. I don't know. It's also like one of the selling points of it. Like, to me, a selling point of this is that it's not crazy big either. Like, I actually think I'm probably maybe halfway, maybe more already through this thing. It's not it's not a huge, it's not an Elden Ring, you know. It's not
right. Yeah.
It's nowhere near that scale, and I actually think I don't think it's near the scale of even a Dark Souls 1 or something like that. I think it's probably quite, like, it doesn't have the same number of like enormous bosses or anything like that. I've probably only fought one boss really, and I've fought one of them twice. That one twice already. So it's definitely scaled back on that. But that's, to me, that's actually a good thing because I can give this a go. Yeah. I can probably crank through it and not feel too hard done by when it's over, or too like if I come away not liking it that much. Like, I don't know.
You've got like the most out of it.
What I would say is I'm not super into its setting and its story and all that. They're like, it's it's super vague, the whole setup for this game. Like, there is some city where some malevolent force that people just refer to as the dead, zombie-like creatures, I suppose. I guess they're coming from this city, I guess. But that fight isn't necessarily going so well. The city's called Dawn, and it's under siege. Hence the subtitle of the game, Siege of Dawn. It's like the start of the game is that you are sieging Dawn. And you are a sapper, and your role is to basically blow shit up. And you get sent in, you blow up this or destroy this magic barrier, not really knowing what it is. And then apparently that basically kind of causes the end of the world. Like, basically what you've done is unlocked the door for even more bad stuff to flow into the world, including gods, one of which befriends you, and that's the fox guy, who is your companion.
Is a god.
Is a lesser god, as he describes it. He's there are stronger and lesser gods. But he's helping you through it, and I think the idea that this game is focusing on just one of the, like, it's a presumably like you're not. My guess is you're not really fixing the problem over the course of this game. I think you're dealing with a problem, and then the game will end, setting itself up for potentially more to come. But yeah, basically you've brought about. You are why the world is Dark Soulsy.
You've made it Souls-like.
Yeah, you made it worse. And it is quite odd. Like, I don't think the voice acting is all that. Like, it's got a very British slant, which is kind of fun.
Really?
Like, yeah.
Okay.
Everyone's kind of a Brit. I think the recording of the voices isn't necessarily so hot. I think that's the main problem, not necessarily the voice performances. Especially Baz, who's like this older guy who's like a dad figure to your character, who's called Nor, by the way. Yeah, he sounds like he's too close and regular to the mic, so his voice
stop regularizing.
Yeah, so when his voice is like, when he's talking, like his voice is really bassy no matter what environment you're in, and it's like that wouldn't sound like that outdoors. No. And so that's a little weird, and I don't like that, but it's super noticeable. Also, there's this really shit minigame called Sebo in it, like, that is basically. Do you know the rules to? I might be remembering this wrong, but you know Nine Men's Morris, that kind of like peg game.
Vaguely.
I forget exactly what the rule is. Like, you have to form a line across the board, or is it like by moving your pegs around, or is it? Anyway, it's a little bit like that. You move coins around this sort of triangular grid board with the idea you're trying to make a triangle.
Sure.
Out of your pieces, and you have a certain number of turns to attack, and then the AI gets a certain number of the same number of turns that you achieved it in to try and to do the same. So they will try and form while you try and block them. And then the game starts introducing special coins into the mix that have like special abilities, and yeah, if you come across a certain special coins, that game is some bullshit. Like it's a bit noughts and crosses-y, right? Where there are certain scenarios where if you're just paying attention, it's just impossible to win because they'll just do a perfect defense.
Right. Yeah.
The only way to win is not to play the game. But the
thanks, Whopper.
Yeah, the reputation rewards are kind of worth it. So you kind of. It makes sense to try and play it. I have only encountered one NPC where I just cannot beat him. He's too good, and he's got a coin that I just don't know how you defeat effectively. Yeah, Sebo's some bullshit. I'd much rather that wasn't there. Like if there was a way of lifting it out or turning it off in some way, then it's still it sucks. I'm not enjoying myself. I'm sort of yeah. I don't think it's
advised.
Yeah, swimming in sevens. I would call it, but I don't know how. Again, I don't have a frame of reference with other Souls likes. So,
but would it tempt you to try another one after
kinda
a break?
It just yeah. I probably need to find out what the sentiment is, because like whether this is actually like more or less lenient than
What? Yeah, what is the kind of mass market Souls like? It's fucking Jedi Fallen Order or something.
Man, I was speaking to a friend of mine the other day who's quite the FromSoft guy, right? Loves everything they've done, like even pre-Demon Souls, right? All their weird PlayStation
pre-Demon
era.
Souls.
Yeah, they've been around for a while, and some of their old stuff is plenty weird.
I mean, some of their new stuff's plenty weird.
It's plenty weird, yeah, sure. And I asked him, like, yeah, what is? I've never played one of these. Like, what to you would be the entry point to it? And they couldn't really make up their mind. They were like, they sort of started by saying, go in at the start, go in at Demon Souls, not even Dark Souls, go in at Demon Souls.
Right. That's the first one I saw. Is Ho had it on a PS3, like playing Demon Souls in the way back. That was really novel. The fact that people were leaving like little messages or whatever. Through the
did Demon Souls have that? Was that? I get maybe it did.
It must have done. It must have done.
Yeah, like go in at there, or they suggested actually go off on a completely different tack and go in at Sekiro, because it's not quite the same thing. It has similar rules, but you're going to.
I don't know what that would actually be like, though. I mean,
Sekiro is more of a skill check than it is you can level up to overcome this.
But I just mean, I don't know if I kind of feel like I get the sense from Sekiro that you might enjoy it more if you're already a Dark Souls fan, and you enjoy the difference. I don't know if that is the entry point, honestly.
Yeah, Sekiro's a lot faster. It's a lot more. It's more character action, but it's still deliberate, if that makes sense. But from what I know of Sekiro, the boss fights can be incredibly punishing.
Well, yeah,
but you just have to get good. Like, it's not go away, get more power, get more skills, get upgraded, and then come back. You don't really have a choice. I think in Sekiro,
my
it's just
flatmate cheesing the Dark Souls 3 bosses by always summoning literally somebody else
get some help. Yeah.
Every single time.
Well, yeah, it doesn't sound like, I mean, players do that, but it doesn't sound like there's any shame in that.
No.
Just go multiplayer when given the option. It makes it easier. It makes total sense, right? Because the other players will just kite the boss for you to an extent.
Exactly.
And you're sharing the damage a little. So anyway, that's what I've been up to. I've been Souls curious.
All right. Well, this may end up being a rich seam for the Saladcast. Before you know it, you'll be knee deep in Elden Ring.
I mean, that's kind of maybe that's the entry point. Just go in on Elden Ring.
Yeah, go straight in on Elden Ring.
That's what
isn't it? Because you've seen, isn't it? You break out into the open world after a brief, introductory section, and it's a huge open world, whatever, Breath of the Wild style.
Sure, yeah.
And then the first guy you see on the horizon, you go up to him, and it's impossible, right? Isn't it? It's like a knight he swings a giant thing, and it's like, yeah, you're not ready for the thing it immediately presents you with.
This is what this will be like. It will punish you.
Yeah, quite funny.
But I think that's what my brother did. I don't know that he'd played a Souls game before Elden Ring, and then
I'm sure
fell in love with Elden Ring, and then
Well, watch this space.
I don't get too excited.
Yeah,
probability's still low.
Yeah, knowing you,
depends if it turns up on Game Pass.
Well, exactly.
It's the usual rule.
Right, well, I think that's our gaming, isn't it?
You've been Zeldering?
I'm stuck on the. I need to get through the Lightning Temple. I was going to do it today, but I had to do a podcast instead.
Sorry.
Okay, I get a choice of podcasting or gaming really on a Sunday. Right.
I mean, you could be running instead,
or it could be running. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Don't pick that option.
Don't do any of them. There's stuff on our YouTube channel more than normal because Zach has been, as aforementioned, posting some Satisfactory videos. So
documentation.
Now that it's actually released, you can check out what it's like to play by watching Zach explain everything. You can see him pick up plants.
Yeah,
pick up plants.
Definitely plants.
Stab some creatures for electro rods.
Yeah. So check that out, as well as our usual regularly scheduled videos. What's the latest?
I mean, Freedom Planet's coming up next.
Freedom Planet.
You have been warned.
Yep. And you got some Owlboy and KOTOR for the time being to keep you going until then. As well as Satisfactory. So enjoy that. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another one of the Saladcast. So we'll catch you then.
On YouTube, no less. You can listen on YouTube. We're there now. Have I said that on the podcast? No, I said that on a video. You can listen on. You can do all of that. Slow down the podcast at that point to understand what I said.
I'm trying to guess it's a YouTube feature.
I mean, I guess you could.
Slow it down.
Slow it down.
And then slow it away.
Or speed it up. I don't know which will make more sense. Or reverse it and get a curse.
Either way, you've reached the end.
Well done, you.